You can put it tilde. And. Finally. Goodbye unloved virginity. Trembling with excitement, I slowly guide my cock towards the wet cleft in front of me. What the fuck are you doing, bitch? But just as my head touches the wet crevice, a bestial scream sounds behind me, causing horror to spread through my mind. Quickly turning my head, I found myself staring at a knife pointing towards me, a knife which I watched bitterly as it rapidly sank into my back. I didn't even have time to complain as I felt myself being stabbed 9 more times in different places, causing my body to collapse to the ground while I heard screams in the background. But with each passing second, the voices grew quieter and quieter, until all I could hear was my own heartbeat growing weaker and weaker, as exhaustion began to take over my body. After a while, the exhaustion that had assailed me gradually faded away, to the point where I felt nothing, leaving only a lethal coldness that spread rapidly through my body. Am I really going to die like this? That's bullshit. No. I just wanted to lose my fucking virginity. But just when I thought I could finally become a real man, I ended up with 9 stab wounds in my body. But I wonder. How the hell did my attempt to hit on a woman end with my beautiful body being stabbed 9 times? Okay, yes. I tried to fuck 50 Cent's wife. But what the hell was I supposed to know about their return? The only reason that bastard was stabbing me is because they got back together. Isn't that right? Just my fucking luck. As a professional sound editor, I was able to surround myself with many famous singers. I met living legends and dead legends. But even if I had fame and wealthy people to surround myself with, I wouldn't be able to get rid of my virginity. She knew a lot about the entertainment industry, it was full of ugly things. Although I had 1 or 2 opportunities to sleep with a famous actress, I happily passed on that opportunity. I just wanted a quiet life. I spent my whole life without anyone to share with or confide in. I just wanted someone to love me, and that was all. But in music. Sigh. Once you step in that shit, you'll smell like shit forever. Many times bitches approached me because of the money I was earning. Fuck, there were even bitches who just wanted to use me as a stepping stone to get to the musicians, but unfortunately for them, I'm not stupid, not even if I were dead, I wouldn't put my dick in those sperm banks. He was desperate, yes, but not desperate enough to stick it anywhere. Sigh. But when I finally found someone relatively clean, a woman who wasn't going from man to man in the music industry, a woman I thought I could love, it turned out the bitch just wanted my beautiful body. What a person has to suffer just for being too beautiful. But that bitch. She was 50 Cent's new wife, or at least she was. They had separated a year ago, on March 23, 2042. Fuck. That guy was already 67 years old, but he still married a 25-year-old woman, you damn scoundrel. How I envy you, you damned bastard. But that bitch is no slouch either, the bitch told me she was single. But she was single. Why the hell did her ex-husband kill me? What a shitty couple. What a shitty life. Sigh. Lying in a pool of blood in a luxury hotel is me, John Black, 24 years old, famous for my edits and beats produced since the short beginning of my career, murdered at a young age by an old black man, but worst of all. Virgin. God. How I envy that son of a bitch Eminem. The way he died was brutal and legendary for someone like him. From having a heart attack after having sex with 8 women at the same time. Sigh. 2031 was sure to be an interesting year. I practically got into the music business because of his legend. I wanted to be like him. I also wanted to die like him. But not. Fate kicked me in the balls. Damn. I couldn't even get it once. No. I just wanted to get an idea of what it feels like. Everyone says it feels heavenly to be inside a woman. Tisk. But do prostitutes always have to be so difficult? Why can't everything be simpler? I'm sure women just have to ask if anyone wants to have sex and all the idiots will line up. But if a man asked for it in public, he would win a sexual harassment lawsuit. Fuck. I envy them. Cough cough. Shit. Apparently, the blood has already reached my lungs and the ambulance still hasn't arrived. I guess if I'm going to die. Sigh. God. Universe. Tooth Fairy. Shrek. Lucifer. I promise you that if you give me another chance, I'll fuck any woman I want, as long as she has a nice ass I'll stick it in, even if she's my mother or a whore nun. I won't let opportunities pass me by. If you're interested in my idea. Please. I want a second chance. I promise to have lots of sex. Don't Asians talk about reincarnation? That would be interesting. I only ask one thing. I don't want to be a woman in my afterlife. Even if I don't use it, I love my fifth member. Ha, 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 how pathetic. Cough. My last thoughts are cough sexual. Sigh. And so, the last breath of life was taken by a famous music composer, John Black, who will sadly only be remembered as a random guy who killed 50 cents for trying to have sex with his wife. Sigh. Why the hell am I not dead yet? This shit hurts too much to wait. Wait. $. Why the hell does my head hurt now? As I recall, I was stabbed in the back. No. That fat guy pushed me and hit me on the head. Those bastards who help him can eat shit. That fucking father of mine can also screw things up. Wait. I don't have a father. No way. I am an orphan. Orphan. What the hell am I thinking? I have a mother who loves me and a father who's an idiot. Huh. Out of nowhere, 2 lives flash before my eyes, causing me to freeze completely at the sudden overload in my brain. There was no pain, no confusion, only clarity. Every minute, every hour, every day, every month, every year. Years and years of memories flashed before my eyes in a matter of seconds, successfully embedded in my memory. I see, I murmur, still lying on the floor, opening my eyes as I look at the neglected ceiling above my head. And, J.A. Even in my past life I'm a genius, although perhaps in this life I'm a little better, I whispered with a small, happy smile on my face. Reincarnation. In what seems to be my own world, but with something that turns it completely upside down. It's a world turned upside down. And like a man. It's simply impossible not to laugh out loud, reincarnated in a damn upside down world. The women apparently act like men and the men act like a bitch. In this fucking world I can grope a woman wherever I want and the chances of lawsuits are almost nil, in fact, they'll most likely be happy. Fucking paradise. Chapter 3, the same shit again. But as I was enjoying my new surroundings, out of nowhere, a pain assaulted my face, forcing me back to reality, my face contorted into a grimace. A reality in which a boy bullies me because of my appearance every day at school. Even now, I'm lying on the bathroom floor because that guy practically knocked me out. Who knew, in 2 different lives, that I would end up living through a horrible childhood? I murmured, using as much of my mental capacity as I could to process 2 lifetimes of memories. In this life, I am Christian Gray, an 8-year-old boy living in poverty, a citizen of Detroit, Michigan, USA. We're so poor we used to live in something like a trailer, and since my mom couldn't afford the rent anymore, we were evicted. Right now, we're staying in a motel. But apparently, my mother was able to get a bank loan to put a roof over our heads, a loan she may be paying off for the rest of her life. I have a mother who doesn't spend much time at home because she has 3 jobs, but even though she's not home, I know she loves me with all her heart, something she doesn't say, but in her tired eyes, I can see a great love for us. Her name is Eva Gray. She is 179 centimeters tall. A beautiful woman in every way, with bright blue eyes, long, straight blonde hair, and beautiful D-cup breasts that, along with her large, wide waist, give her a tempting appearance for a virgin like me. Her body is so beautiful that I'm sure in my old world, men would have drooled over it. But obviously, this has its problems. Her breasts are a source of insecurity for her. In this world, having large breasts isn't well regarded. The most common surgeries in this world aren't plastic surgery like mine, but reduction surgeries, removing a large portion of a woman's breasts. In a way, I'm grateful that we're poor because if we had the money, I'm 100% sure mom would have removed those beautiful breasts with some surgery. But it's funny. In my old world, large breasts were considered an attractive asset. But in this one, they're far from the ideal of beauty. Unfortunately, I don't have much information about why in my head. Although, if I had to guess, I'd say the ideal aesthetic is similar to the men of my previous world, where men with effeminate features were the ideal. But it really sucks. What those surgeons are doing must be a cardinal sin. Well, this world is already a bit strange in itself. I also have a father named Brian Smith, who behaves like a dog. He spends most of his time high on pills or drugs. The bastard complains about mom all the time, claiming she's the reason we live in a dump. Damn it, the bitch spends half of all the money mom earns on her fucking drugs, and to top it all off, when he's not high, he comes to beat up my older sister and me for whatever reason he feels like. Even if his fucking beatings are just slaps and hair pulling, the mere fact that he does it is emotionally devastating. The bastard doesn't look bad. He's about 178 centimeters tall, has short black hair, dark brown eyes, a somewhat sharp but unkempt face, with dark circles under his eyes and pimples that really ruin his appearance. He used to be in better shape, but drugs affect everyone. Just because of her constant complaining, Mom was on the verge of collapse more than once, but she endured it all like a real man. Or should I say now like a real woman. And the worst part is that she still doesn't know he's doing drugs, since the bastard only does it when she's not around. But if all this crap wasn't bad enough, a fat kid is bullying me at school because he's jealous of me. How ruthless can these little bastards be? He literally knocked me unconscious with the blow to the head he gave me, and he just laughed. Hearing her laugh as I lost consciousness was annoying as hell. In my old life, I suffered the same shit, but the bastards had mercy, a few blows, and that was it. But in this life, everything is more difficult. They hide my books, they hide my backpack, they pour liquids on my seat, they even once threatened to shave my head. The bastard is already 12 years old and I'm only 8. Can't he have mercy? What the hell does he eat at home to be so stupid? Is it something from the upside-down world? Were women really that mean? Well, I always heard that women were more promiscuous, but I never believed it. Sigh. Where was I? Okay, yes. I was reviewing my family situation. Besides having a mother and a father, I have 3 siblings. That's 2 sisters and 1 brother, to be precise. My older sister's name is Ashley Gray, and although she's my father's daughter, their relationship was strange. Mom got pregnant by my dad when she was 14, and he was 19 at the time, but apparently, he fathered a child with another woman when he was 14, and they abandoned him and the child. I don't know whether to laugh or cry at my understanding of relationships in this world. Apparently, it is not uncommon for women to leave the child with the father and abandon him. The famous cigar shopping spree. A purchase that takes many parents, never to be seen again, or should I say, mothers in this world. Besides, what the hell is going on? Is it normal to have children at 14 years old? 14 damn years. Damn it. The mere thought of my mother having me at such a young age makes my blood boil with rage. In my world, that bastard would already be in jail. But shouldn't that bastard be in jail anyway? As far as I know, there have been many cases where a woman was imprisoned for sleeping with minors. Sigh. I still can't get over the fact that my mother had me when she was 14 years old. But I suppose that, in this world, even though what happened was strange, my mother would be admired by many women. I would even admire a 14-year-old boy who gets a 19-year-old woman pregnant. Are we really that twisted? Or am I just an idiot? Okay, I'll stop rambling. The point is, even though Ashley isn't my real sister, she always loved us like family, taking care of us, always taking the worst shit without complaining. Honestly, I don't know how such a good person came from a bastard like that. She's only 14, but she started working a year ago at a warehouse to help out at home, dropping out of school in the process. Something the mother reluctantly allowed after an afternoon filled with shouting. Ashley is a beautiful woman. She has medium-sized breasts, I think she'd be a B or maybe a C cup. Her butt is also rather large, and her face is very similar to that bastard's, with long brown hair and brown eyes. But in my heart, even though she looks like that bastard, she's one of the most beautiful women in the world. But something bothers me a lot when I think about her. Apparently, she's on drugs. She never took it in front of us. She even tried to act natural to a certain extent, and my overly intelligent, childlike self couldn't detect it, but now I do. I've seen that side of her many times in the entertainment industry. She's coming across very badly. I can even tell what kind of drugs he's taking. Judging by his sleepy face and droopy eyelids, I know he's on some kind of crap that suppresses his nervous system. If I had to guess, I'd say something like alprazolam or even weed. Although I would honestly prefer it to be the latter, at least it won't kill her from an overdose. Sigh. I need to think of something that will help her. That crap will only make her fall further and further without help. I've seen many cases where people who worked with me ended up in hospitals or worse. But what to do? Right now, I'm just a kid. Will people even notice me? Sigh. I'll think about it later. Besides my sister Ashley, I have 2 younger siblings, Alan Gray, who is 7 but should be 8 in a few months, and Haley Gray, who is 6. They are both incredibly sweet. Alan spends his time reading stories about princes being saved by princesses. Very disturbing crap to me. Haley, on the other hand, just spends her time drawing whatever comes to mind. Once she drew something that looked like a ghost and said it was me. It's very funny how children can live peacefully without worrying much about the poverty that surrounds them or the evils that society hides. Alan Gray will be a handsome young man, I have no doubt about it. He has the same hair as Mom, brown eyes like the other bastard we call Dad, and an oval face with chubby cheeks, Cheeks that are constantly pinched by mom or my older sister, something he says bothers him a lot, but his pouty face makes it even harder. He practically looks like a squirrel. He's a bit sensitive, he tends to cry about everything. And when I say everything, I mean everything. I have a memory where I picked up one of her picture books to find out what it was about, and she ended up crying for 3 hours straight. I had given it to her, but she still wouldn't stop crying. He simply fell asleep when he ran out of energy. I'm sure he'd still be crying if it weren't for that reason. But I suppose it's normal in this culture, I guess. But I'm the most problematic one. Apparently, I was born with a genetic anomaly. Mom was so worried about me that the moment I was born, she spent all her savings taking me to different doctors. But no matter how many doctors I visited, no one knew what was wrong with me. In the end, Mom could only swallow her worry bitterly and pray that nothing serious would happen to me. I'm very different from Mom and all my siblings. Although I share some of Mom's features, all my hair is white, platinum white, to be precise. Even my eyebrows and eyelashes are that color. I don't have hair anywhere else, so I can't say the rest yet. Can you imagine having white pubic hair? That would be crazy. Chapter 4, Genesis, unedited. At first the doctors said I had albinism, because of my white skin and white hair, but after some studies they realized that no, I don't have the defects of albinism, the sun doesn't affect me at all, and I certainly don't have vision problems, it's as if I was simply born with different genes. My childhood self even thought I was adopted, and I myself would be doubting the same if it weren't for my memories. But what made me rule out albinism were the medical results. It turns out that my body produces melanin without problems, even distributing it perfectly, making everything about me a mystery. But silvery white hair isn't the only thing about the situation, there are many cases of different degrees of albinism in the world. What's special about me are my eyes. At first they were light blue, but over the years they gradually began to change to violet, and it seems that the more years pass, the more intense their color becomes. Today, the peculiar light violet color that has completely disappeared is clearly visible to the naked eye. At this point I have to remind myself that this shit is not a movie or an anime. Violet eyes are a real rarity all over the world, even doctors say there are no records of anything like it. It's so weird that the doctors who saw me offered to study my body to try to find the anomaly for free, but Mom didn't think for a second about rejecting them. She's not stupid, she knows that the shit will keep me locked up most of the time. Although, as I recall, in my world I did hear about albinos with purple eyes, but of course, I'm not an albino. But it's not just my characteristics that are special, everything about me is special in some way. Before I regained my memories, my childhood self spent the day reading and studying new things. Apparently, I have a perfect memory since I was born. No matter what I see or what people tell me, I will always remember it perfectly. It's a little strange to take in so many things at a glance, but I don't feel any discomfort. I'd say it's quite the opposite, I feel very good about everything. Thanks to that incredible memory and my high capacity to understand things, I already have perfect command of 4 languages, English, Russian, Japanese, and French. Well, maybe saying it's perfect is an exaggeration, since I can't speak the language, I only understand it and can read it without any problem. But it's better than nothing, right? Apart from English, which I learned when I was 1 year old, I learned the others in my 2nd year of school, thanks to the library books. It's a bit strange to think that my motivation for reading other languages stemmed from a movie I saw at the time. The film was about a Russian spy, and there were many moments when she spoke in her language. Apparently, I felt uncomfortable not understanding what she was saying, and my inner child dedicated themselves to studying everything I could find about foreign languages. All that crap caused me some problems at school. In a way, I can say that my passion for books further fuels the flame of that chubby guy who makes my life miserable. But these aren't the only traits I'd highlight either. Although I don't notice it much now, I think I'm stronger than the average kid. For example, when we moved, we had to move heavy things. Toy kitchens, bags of clothes, mattresses, etc. But I never found it too heavy, though I know it's difficult for a 9-year-old. My former self thought I was normal, but now with these memories I know I'm anything but normal. All these traits remind me of a legend from my old world. It was called Alexandria Syndrome or Genesis of Alexandria, where they describe something similar to what is happening to me. From superintelligence to superior strength, even the purple or violet eyes were described perfectly, the only thing that does not match is the hair color. Although I'm still not sure if the strength thing is true in my case, or if I was simply weaker in my past life. But it's curious how a legend that originated in Egyptian times can be represented in me today, in addition to a completely different world. Although I lack too many details to be able to say that I have the same syndrome described in the legends. I don't remember seeing any light in the sky as the legend says, and if I don't remember it's because it simply didn't happen. Well, it's a bit of a pointless comparison, I only have a little of the traits and intelligence. I still can't say I have super strength, I was only able to lift a few things, and that's about it. But it's not bad to have something to compare it to. One thing I appreciate is that my inner self was aware that his intelligence is not normal, which is why he didn't tell anyone what he learned, even hiding the languages he speaks. Although he didn't think deeply about hiding it, the only reason was to avoid being looked at strangely. He already dealt with 3 bitches just for reading books and having white hair, imagine what it would be like to admit to being a genius. Perhaps in college or adulthood it would be something to admire, but for children being different is a reason to be ridiculed. They're just small primates. Overall, I could say that almost all of my changes are good, although it has some external shortcomings. Although I am still young, I always saw people looking at me with different intentions. I still remember one of the few times I went out to the park with my older sister. I was only gone for a few minutes when a lady came up offering me sweets if I followed her somewhere unknown. My childish self, being an intelligent boy, followed his mother's words and refused instantly. I was lucky that the lady didn't insist further and let me go, because if she had insisted on taking me by force, I couldn't have resisted. Now, if I had the memory of my previous life, maybe I would have thought about it. But I doubt I would have accepted. I'm not stupid, I know that if I had followed her, I might never see my family again, or worse, I would end up dead. Besides, I still can't even stand up. What good would it do me to go if I can't get an erection? Little advantage and much risk, only a fool would accept. But she's not the only strange woman I've ever seen. Even the nun from the church near our caravan, whom I saw looking at me with hot eyes, reminded me of my last words. Perhaps I'll play around with those sides a bit in the future. It would be great to have sex with a nun. In my old life I could only dream of that, but in this one I think it would be easier. How many times in my former life did I hear about pastors with a fondness for children? In this world it must be something very similar, only the common victims are men, not women. Wait. What I heard most in my previous life is that pastors generally look for boys, not girls. Do they prefer women in this world? It would be a disappointment to my virgin side. Ah. Why do I think about such disgusting things? Sleeping with a nun. Besides, the way that lady looked, she was quite scary. She wasn't even pretty. Do I have a testosterone problem? I shouldn't be having these kinds of thoughts, I'm only 9 years old. But why shouldn't I think that way? It's exciting to think about sex life. But thinking about it at age 9. Are you thinking about sleeping with a potential child rapist? Well, sounds kind of exciting. No. What the hell am I thinking? That doesn't sound good at all. What the hell is happening to me? I muttered, confused, as I felt my brow instinctively furrow. I feel confused. Do I want something or not? Am I bipolar? No, I haven't had such radical changes. Sigh. I'll leave it for the future, I have no basis for anything. The more I think about it, the more confused I feel. Sigh, that would be my mental summary of the situation. I can't speak much about the world, my younger self was never interested in television, and the internet is still not something I can easily access. Mom has internet on her cell phone, but it's difficult to ask her for it considering she's almost never home. The only thing I can add is that it seems like I'm on June 18, 2009, and I have a little bit of historical knowledge that I've read. In a month I will be 9 years old, I was born on July 25, 2000. But thinking about the year we are in brings up many questions for me. I was born much later in my other world, and from what I can see, this world is not very different from the other one, only the roles were reversed. Doesn't reincarnation follow the laws of time? Will the timeline remain the same or will everything change? Will the same events happen as in my previous world? Will I have to live through the pandemic and all the crap that comes after? How different is the world now ruled by women? I already have a vague answer to this last question, but unfortunately I don't know enough to draw any conclusions. I suppose I'll have time to look into it. Now. I have a score to settle with a fat man. I murmur with a small smile on my face. I get up and look around the bathroom, which seems familiar yet unfamiliar. Even though classes are over, I know that son of a bitch hangs out with his friends to play games or talk about whatever shit comes to mind. It doesn't matter that the little son of a bitch behaves like a demon, that doesn't change the fact that he is no different from a girl. When I stand up, I take a good look at my body in the mirror and all I have to say is that I am a beautiful jewel. My hair, my features, my eyes, everything about me screams beauty. If it weren't for my slightly masculine features, people would think I was a woman, which is strange because if I looked like a woman, I would be like a man from my old life. What a fucking mess. Although I am grateful that the sense of beauty has not been distorted in this world. No. Wait. The only people who told me I would be handsome are my older sister and my mother. Is this the typical case where your family tells you you're handsome when the truth is you're uglier than sin? The more I follow this line of thought, the paler my face becomes. Can you imagine being considered a monstrosity for being so beautiful? Wait. Now that I think about it, I'm kind of popular with the older girls at this school. Even if they don't talk to me, I always see them looking at me. There's a chance people will look at me for being weird. But one look would be enough for that. The girls look at me every chance they get. Oh okay. Forget it. In my old world, even women who weren't very beautiful could have all the sex they wanted. Also, I really like the way I look now. Hello handsome. I smiled narcissistically in front of the mirror as I admired everything about myself, without bothering to look at the large bruise under my eye, let alone the blood coming out of my nose. Well, we have to have a rematch. I muttered, not bothering to wash my face, and quietly left the bathroom. After leaving that disgusting place, I walked slowly through the empty school hallways, heading towards a certain particular locker. The walk was a very strange experience. I felt like I knew everything perfectly, and the truth is that I do know everything, but somehow everything seems so strange. So unknown. Chapter 5, Little Devils, unedited. I continued walking slowly as I got used to my surroundings. Taking a deep breath, I smiled with pleasure. Ha. It feels so good to feel the information entering my mind. Trash on the floor, lockers on a certain wall, a janitor looking at me strangely, all this information enters my memory never to leave, something that has no relevance but that I will never be able to forget. All of this makes me feel wonderful for some unknown reason. Upon arriving in front of what appears to be a small wardrobe, I open it without hesitation, and inside you can see different things with something in common. They were all grooming tools. Looking at the bathroom lady's tools, I take 2 brooms and close the cupboard, then head towards where I think the fat kid is. Along the way I met some people. The teachers in general looked at me in a concerned way, but none of them took the time to approach me to ask me what had happened to me. Some of them even knew what was happening and just let it go like a girl fight. It's funny. Half of my face under my eye is black and my nose is bleeding. Don't you mind? Don't you care to know what happened? Is it because we're children? But shouldn't it be more worrying? Well, I shouldn't expect too much from this public school. Not even from the people. As I reflected, I realized I was only a few meters from my destination, my blood boiling with the constant humiliation these bitches inflicted on me. I gripped both brooms tightly and walked faster. When I approached, I saw them, 3 children sitting on the ground, just outside the classroom, happily looking at a magazine, as if the entire beating they had just received was something they hadn't done. Many people say that in these cases you should defend yourself and everything will stop, while others say to tell the teachers or someone older, but I know it's all bullshit. My childish self had tried to tell the teacher. He had said he would talk to them, but the shit ended up worse. If before they only bothered him at some times, it became something that happened all day, which made me regret the moment I tried. I had also tried to defend myself, but it's a complicated mess when you consider that I'm outnumbered and oversized. I practically couldn't even land a punch the right way, although I'm a little embarrassed that my first attempt at landing a punch was a slap. Gritting my teeth at the memories these bastards left me with, I slowly placed a broom on the ground, while slowly making my way towards them, until I was on the back of the fat kid who was on a ledge. Jake! I exclaimed, grabbing the end of the broom with both hands, as an involuntary smile spread across my face. Yeah. He turned the ball of fat called Jack. Fuck off. I answered him, hitting him in the face with the other end of the broom, causing Jack, with a thud, to fall to the ground from the force of the impact, instantly screaming from the loud thud. Noah, go to hell too. I screamed, hitting him in the side of his body, right in the ribs, and then I turned my gaze to the other child who was still processing all the events. And you, Brad, can go to hell too. I smiled, waving the broom with all my might, to hit his arm hard, which stood between him and his path to the ribs. My God! Jake cried, writhing on the ground while covering the spot where I hit him with his hands. He looks awful now, snot is constantly running from his nose, dirt is coating his face to keep it from falling to the ground, and the tears haven't helped much, just scattering dust all over his face. Wah! Noah screamed, lying on the ground in a fetal position, crying out loud from the pain of the blow. Daddy. Sniff, it hurts, sniff. Brad was the only one who didn't scream, he just cried softly calling for his father, but I can consider that normal since I only hit him on the arm, not in the face or ribs like the others. When I finish hitting them I feel perfect, a great relief runs through my mind, I even notice a slight feeling of excitement. I look at the broom and see that it's in perfect condition. I had thought one would break, like in the movies, that's why I brought two, but apparently I still don't have enough strength. Turning my gaze back to Jake, who was writhing miserably, all the hatred I felt blossomed again, making me move quickly towards him, until I reached his side so I could get a better view of his pitiful state, but ignoring his loud screams, I sat on his chest and glared at him with hatred. "Don't you like hitting me?" I yelled, hitting the right side of his face. "Don't you like hiding my books?" I screamed again, hitting the left side of his face this time. "Don't you like hiding my things from me?" I screamed, my face already distorted by hatred. "Do you enjoy making my life miserable? Answer me, you fat piece of shit. Answer me." I screamed again and again, as blows rained down on Jake, who was crying louder and louder beneath me. "Why aren't you answering?" I screamed, tears already welling up in my eyes, blinded by rage at everything that had happened in my short life. I hit it again and again and again and again, until my knuckles began to go numb. At that moment I felt my whole mind lose control, only rage ruled my being, forcing me to unleash all my hatred and frustration on Jake for a few more seconds. But, even though my anger clouded my judgment, my mind continued to function as usual, which forced me to return to my senses. Looking to both sides, I could tell that even though these bastards were shouting loudly, nobody was arriving on the scene yet, so without hesitation I stood up while wiping the blood and tears off my face with my clothes. What happened to me? Did I just lose control of a damn kid? I am an adult. Why am I getting angry over a child? Tisk. They are to blame, I don't have to feel guilty. I guess this is a downside to my perfect memory. Every time I recall what I experienced with these bastards, I remember everything perfectly, from the pain to the sound. Although remembering the pain doesn't mean I'll feel it again, it's the memory of how painful it was. It's complicated to explain, but it feels awful. With one last look at the three children, I turn around and head home. Home. I never had one. In my previous life I had a large mansion, but I could never say that it was my true home, which is normal if I think about my current state. No family, no wife, no children, nothing. To me, that was just a house, not a home. But now, knowing that I have a home, with a mother who loves me, with siblings who love me, has somehow helped to erase the hurt I felt inside when I beat up that trio of bitches. I walked in silence as I reflected on everything that had happened in this short time. I have died and been reincarnated. I have a family. I'm weird. Who am I? John Black. B. Christian Grey. Did I just take John's memories? Or did I take over Christian's body? No. Neither option. Everything Juan experienced I don't feel as mere memories, it's as if I lived it myself, but with Christian it's the same, everything I experienced as a Christian are not mere memories. Why do I talk about them as if they weren't me? Are we the same person or not? Somehow I think I know the answer. Yeah. He is me and I am the John. Is this my past life or my future life? No. It cannot be the future, nor is the world the same. Even if John was born in the future, it doesn't mean that this world is the same. But, does it matter who I was or who I am? Perhaps I am neither of them and I am simply assimilating the experiences of both people. But I can also be both people at the same time, some kind of soul fusion or something like that. Anyway, I don't see any relevance in who I am and who I was, even though my whole point of view has changed, I'm still me, Christian Grey. A name my family gave me. John Black is dead and that is irrefutable. John was an orphan and I have a family. Family. Wait. Why do I feel like I can't remember something important? Oh shit. Why the hell am I walking home? We don't have a home. We're living in a damn motel. Normally I should go pick up my younger siblings and wait for the bus to arrive, but my siblings didn't go to school because of the changes. I insisted on coming, so their sister came to drop me off. But wasn't she also supposed to pick me up a while ago? Why does he keep coming? Hasn't it been about 40 minutes since I left school? Shouldn't he have picked me up now? Okay, I'll wait at the entrance. Redirecting my path towards the school entrance, I fall back into deep thoughts. How different will the world be today? I have never dedicated myself to studying my surroundings. I have only read about different languages and even about ancient culture, almost nothing about today. I only know that the world is practically the same as the other, the same countries, the same continents, even the same moon, practically nothing vital has changed. The only thing I can notice is that the whole story itself changed. For example, in this world it is said that Jesus, the son of the goddess, was a woman. Even God is seen as a woman. If I think about it, there are the different gods, Zeus, Odin, Athena, Aphrodite, etc. Although I don't know the overall story, since it never interested me, I only know the main points that were once shown in a movie that my mom saw. It was a rather peculiar movie. Almost all the ancient gods were fighting against a mega space titan, a bit crazy. They even showed the origins of the gods and things like that. But in history, it was Aphrodite who freed the gods from the titans, not Zeus. In Norse mythology, Odin was not the most important god, he was only the husband of an important goddess, Frigg. Odin was not a great magician nor the strongest, he was only the god of fertility, who married Frigg, the seer and warrior goddess, one of the strongest goddesses second only to Freya. Although from what I saw, Odin's appearance is very different from what I thought, he was seen as a handsome man, and it is said that his beauty was transcendent among the gods. Something strange for me, since I had the one-eyed old man in mind. Even the children of that couple were there. But Thor is not called Thor, but Thorina, even her sister Loki, has the same name, but it is worth noting that she is now a woman. That means that, although the same gods are named in this world, there were many changes, but apparently only the biblical one remains practically the same, only the genders were reversed. No. Lucifer is a man, who does not change in this world. The stories portrayed Lucifer as the villain as always, but it also highlights that he dedicated himself to deceiving women and slept with all of them. A whore according to the women of this world. What a complicated piece of shit. Although I must say those movies were incredible, it's quite similar to the Lord of the Rings saga but with gods. I don't know how much of what's in the movies is real, but I suppose they were based on their stories. Apart from the gods, the history of the world also changed, but not the events, only the person. Christopher Columbus did not discover America, it was a Spanish woman named Maria Columbus. Could he be related to Christopher Columbus? Am I wrong? Was Christopher Columbus born a woman? All events are the same wars, the same diseases, everything is the same. In my old world, some believed that if women had ruled, everything would be different. Now I see that it is a vile lie, all humans are equal. Chapter 6. How did he get to this point? Unedited. I suppose men believe the same in this world. If they ruled, everything would be more peaceful and beautiful. But if I analyze it carefully, I think it all has to do with culture or education. Because for a man or a woman to govern better, they first have to be raised in a more delicate, strict, I don't know. To govern. Shit. We no longer have founding fathers, only founding mothers. Founding mothers. It sounds strange to me, but it doesn't bother me, it's just odd. The names of the 44 presidents to date are different, but the surnames are repeated: Washington, Adams, Kennedy, Bush, etc. All surnames are the same, only the first names change. Although the current president has a new last name. Wait. Isn't the current president someone from my old world? Michelle Obama. Are they the same people as in my old world? But there is also the possibility that only the name is the same. I have never seen his face, I have only heard his name. How the hell do I not know what the president looks like? Don't they usually put their faces everywhere when they campaign? Don't they usually put up pictures of presidents in schools? Am I that absent-minded? I suppose it's because I never take my eyes off books. Besides, why did they keep the surnames? As far as I know, in this world, the first surname comes from the mothers, not from the fathers like in mine. So, why are the surnames the same? Weren't those surnames used by men? Well, it's a different world, I can't draw conclusions from something from another place. But that doesn't take away the strangeness of the world. Did Shrek want to take his mud bath and not have time to do something more complete? Doesn't the fairy like my teeth? Why the hell is the world so strange? But the most important thing in this situation. Can I have sex with the president? Is she married to Barack Obama? Could NTR Barack Obama? No, no, no. I won't mess with black wives, I've been stabbed enough to learn my lesson. Although, wouldn't that be more entertaining? I managed to see the future in the newspapers. Barack Obama's wife is fucked in front of him. Wow, great news. I read it without hesitation, and even bought copies to keep as a family heirloom. But, does Barack Obama exist in this world? Perhaps I should have paid more attention to the teachers and not read about other things in history class. Sigh. So many questions. So few answers. But, what does it matter? It doesn't affect me whether I know or not. I'm just going to live my life and that's it. Everything is so complicated that I prefer not to think about it.
Why hasn't my sister arrived yet? I arrived at the entrance a while ago, I'd say about 10 minutes ago, but sis is nowhere to be seen. What am I going to do in the future? It's easier to play with women now, but how am I going to get out of this poverty? Should I look for a rich woman? I'm sure I'm handsome enough, it wouldn't be hard to find a millionaire wife. No. My pride wouldn't allow me to do that. Tilda. Who am I kidding, I'd love to live off a woman's wealth. But it's a very ugly road. I knew many stories in my past life of women who got involved with men for wealth, and almost all of them ended badly. Dead, discarded, in jail, poorer, etc. Endings I don't want. Even though I'd love to have sex, I have to be smart about who I sleep with. For example, I'd hit on a church pastor if I could. I know he wouldn't be able to talk about it openly, after all, they have an image to maintain. I could even try it with a female president and it would all remain a secret. But if I have sex with a woman from my social circle, everything will become difficult. Women behave like men, I have to keep that in mind. For example, if I have sex with a friend from school, I have no doubt that she will tell her friends and that would create a negative reputation for me. It's not that I care much about reputation, but I think about my mom and my family. If I were a father and my daughter had a reputation as a whore, it would break my heart, and I love my mom too much to put her through that pain. But it would be interesting to travel to other countries on vacation or for work and have sex without problems. No one would know me and it would be totally secret. I would just have to go out, choose the prettiest women I saw, if possible with a nice one, and that's it. I wouldn't have to do much. I'd probably just have to ask them for sex and they'd gladly accept. At least I would. If a beautiful woman with white hair and purple eyes came to me and asked me for sex, I would accept without hesitation. Or am I the weird one? No. If someone does not accept such an offer, it is because they are crazy or a hypocrite. I'm not the weird one. Well, maybe a little. Sigh. Where the hell is my sister? I whisper, staring boredly up at the blue sky, avoiding the annoyed glances of people passing by. It's like I'm a fucking monkey in a zoo. Has the school found out that I hit those children? They should. They have cameras everywhere. If they haven't found out by now, they should fire someone. Will mom be angry? It's best to tell her before the director calls her. Sooner or later they have to summon her to talk about it. Sigh. Almost an hour has passed and the sister still hasn't arrived. Son, are you okay? I heard an agitated voice beside me, a voice so unfamiliar yet so familiar to me. Mother. What is she doing here? Shouldn't I be working? Where is the sister? My son, tell mom what happened to your face. Mom asked with concern in her tired eyes, bending down to my level while she carefully touched my bruise. Mom was dressed in a McDonald's uniform, the old light blue one. She'd apparently just gotten off work. She has 3 jobs, one at McDonald's, one as a stalker at Walmart, and the last one at KFC. Works from 7 a.m. to 12 p.m. She practically just falls asleep and nothing else. Sigh. Come on, Mom, I'll tell you on the way, it's a great story. I said cheerfully, as a big smile burst across my face, doing my best not to worry my mother. But. No buts, let's go. I smiled gently, taking Mom's hand and pulling her with me toward nowhere in particular. Are you so cheerful? Mom smiled curiously, letting go of me. We walked in silence, feeling Mom's calloused hands on the path, thinking about how to explain the problems at school to her without causing her too much pain. What are you doing here, Mom? Shouldn't the older sister be here? I asked her, looking curiously into her face. Your sister couldn't get off work earlier, so she called me to see if I could come pick you up, Mom replied, her shoulders slumping for some reason. Why can't your mom come pick you up? Are you embarrassed? Mom smiled as she spoke in a sad tone. Lowering his head, he sighed with a reluctant expression. Sis would take me to see my girlfriend. Cough cough, Mom coughed violently, seemingly choking on her own saliva. What about you? My girlfriend. My boyfriend has a girlfriend. My boyfriend has a girlfriend. Mom whispered over and over, her eyes dimming for a moment, but then suddenly brightening again, before she turned to me and spoke with hope in her voice. Didn't you say that when you grow up you'll marry Mom? Tilda ha 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 ha. I laughed heartily, settling my stomach as I did my best to prevent tears from spilling out of the corner of my eye. Then I looked at her with obvious satisfaction as she happily replied, yes, I'm going to marry Mom, that's why I don't have and won't have a girlfriend. At that moment a warmth flooded my heart, a beautiful feeling that I had never felt in my other life. It felt so good and perfect that involuntarily a big smile burst onto my face. This is something I apparently promised when I was 3 years old. At that time I didn't understand anything about marriage, but Mom asked me if I would marry her in the future and I agreed without thinking twice. Looking at her out of the corner of my eye, I could see that all her pain had disappeared when she touched her chest, letting out a long sigh of what appeared to be relief. "Don't joke around with Mom like that," my heart almost jumped out of my chest. She spoke to me with obvious reproach in her voice, frowning, making her even more beautiful than she already is. Even though I've lived an adult life and it's a little embarrassing for me to act like a child, it feels amazing somehow. HMPH. I looked away, hiding my happy smile. How could I not be happy? Mom rarely spends time with me. In my entire life she has spent so little time with me that if I counted the days on my hands I would have fingers to spare. Perhaps it's my fault, however. Books can be a death trap. Now tell me, what happened to your face? Mom asked, stopping to look at me seriously. Well, here's the thing. I sighed mentally, then told her everything that happened with the trio of bitches, from when they started bullying me, to the times I tried to defend myself only to be beaten even more. During my story we continued walking, but I kept looking at Mom as I spoke. Her expression changed many times. It started with astonishment, then concern, but the more I recounted what happened, the more her expression changed to outright anger. But before she could explode even more, I began to tell you what happened today. Then, when I was lying on the ground, I realized I just couldn't hit them hard, so I went to get a broom so I could defend myself properly, and when I had it in my hand, I went to look for them where they always hang out. I explained all of this quickly, while I felt Mom's hand tightening more and more in mine. And that's where I found them, all three of them gathered with their backs to me. What do you think I did, Mom? What did you do? Mom asked in a tense voice, looking at me with obvious concern in her voice. I beat them up. I started with Jake and then I went on to the others. When I finished beating them up, they were all three of them crying on the floor. I smiled, puffing out my thin chest with pride, waiting for Mom's praise. Why are you smiling? Mom yelled, looking at me angrily for the first time in my life. Mom. I spoke to him with bewilderment and fear at his current expression. Do you think it's okay to hit other children? She screamed again while squeezing my hand tightly. Couldn't you tell your teachers what was going on? You had to hit them. Mom continued screaming. But Mom, I tried to protest, annoyed that she didn't understand me. If I spoke to the teachers, they said they would speak to the demons, but instead of stopping their abuse, they only became more persistent. What's the point? No, but, you will go and apologize to them tomorrow. He shouted, looking at me fiercely. No, I won't do it. I screamed in response, my eyes already blurring with tears welling up. They beat me daily and never apologized, why would I? Is this what we teach you? To solve everything by hitting? You're a Christian child, you shouldn't be fighting with people. I screamed, pulling my arm away as I answered him. At this point, my tears were already flowing uncontrollably, as my mind was rapidly collapsing under the intense emotions I was feeling. Teach me. What have you been teaching me? To get high every day like Dad does. Or to endure his beatings every day just because he ran out of drugs. I screamed at the top of my lungs, not caring about the people who were watching it all as a spectacle. Son. Mom lowered her voice, while looking at me puzzled. No, let me finish, I screamed, a sharp pain beginning to form in my chest, as I unleashed all my frustrations on her. You're never home. Every time I come home you're not there. Every time I wake up you're not there. I have to live every day with a father who's worse than garbage, while you're not there. Every time I come home I get beaten. I go to school I get beaten. Do you think it's easy? Do you think I like it? No, I hate it. I hate it. I quickly let go of Mom's hand, before running as fast as I could to a nearby park, sore from all this shit. How did we get to this point? Chapter 7, Chaos Unedited. Cristiano. Mom screamed, quickly following me. I didn't want to yell at Mom. I didn't want to make her sad. I didn't want to see her pained face. I didn't want to make her suffer. So, why did I say such hurtful things to her? Just a few minutes ago I was laughing happily. Whereas now I feel like the world is going to end at any moment. I know I'm acting like a child, but I can't help it, the rage I feel inside blinds me. My whole body feels heightened, somehow, I feel my muscles constantly trembling. My mind quickly descends into chaos, thoughts, memories, words, experiences, all sorts of painful recollections begin to torment my sanity, constantly repeating everything I wish I could forget. Why can't Mom understand that I can't talk to them? Do you think it's so easy to put up with this shit every day? I ran towards the park ahead, trying to outrun Mom. I needed to think, I needed to calm down, but no matter how fast I wanted to run, Mom would easily catch me. When I got there, I hid in the trees, while I threw myself to the ground and curled up hugging my knees, sobbing silently. Son. I heard a broken voice above me. I didn't need to be a genius to know it was Mom, but I preferred not to speak or look at her. I just chose to remain silent. I don't know what horrible things I could scream at him because of my current confusion. My mind is a mess, all the bad memories I have overwhelm me, repeating the scenes over and over again, not letting me rest from the sadness and anger that tear me apart, while the anger fed more and more inside me. Forgive me, son. I didn't mean to yell at you. Mom spoke, her voice soft but trembling, wrapping her arms around my back and pulling me close to her chest. Then she stroked my back. Mom was silly. It hurts me so much to see you sad, but you don't have to hold it in. Let it out and let the sadness out of your beautiful heart with Mom. I'll always be there for you. At that moment I simply couldn't hold back anymore. I was crying like a real child on her chest, screaming and venting all my frustrations through my tears, while I felt Mom squeeze me tighter in her hug for every minute I cried. After a few minutes I was able to recover my thoughts and memories, but even though the anger and sadness that flooded my being had disappeared, the pain in my chest was still overwhelming. The knowledge that I took out my anger on the person I love most in this world makes me nauseous. You know, Mom whispered softly, gently stroking my hair. When you were just a few months away from being born, I felt so scared. My family had kicked me out of the house when they found out I was pregnant. I felt desperate. I had a husband and daughter to feed, plus another child already on the way, but no home or job. When I first heard Mom talk about her family, I felt anger, a lot of anger. Mom was just a child, but she already had to face the world on her own. Although I went through something similar, I was lucky enough to only have to support myself, whereas my mom had to raise an entire family when she was only 14 years old. Just thinking about it makes me angry. And that bastard. Couldn't he even work? A real leech. I worked as hard as I could, doing every kind of job my pregnancy allowed me to do. Even though it was difficult, I made it. I was able to secure a roof over my head and food to live on. But I still felt desperate. Babies need so many things that I couldn't possibly provide. Mom whispered to me, but I kept going. I worked until my shoulders couldn't bear it anymore. I kept telling myself, I'm a woman, and I must face everything. But the despair only intensified when there were only a few weeks left until the birth. I didn't feel ready. I didn't feel like I could give you a decent life. I was so scared. At this point, they just made me cry again. I always knew Mom endured a lot alone, but knowing something about someone through deductions is very different from them telling you directly, especially when the person recounting all their fear is your mother, the woman I love most in this world. The fact that I yelled at a woman who did so much for me makes me want to hit myself right now. I feel so helpless. Idiot. But when it seemed like everything was going to fall apart at any moment. You were born. You looked so fragile and delicate. I was even afraid to hold you, thinking I might hurt you. But you opened your eyes and reached out your little hands to me. Mom whispered, lifting her head with both hands, looking at me with pure love in her eyes, a big smile forming on her face, but at the same time her eyes were getting redder and redder. When I held you in my arms, I felt a new strength being born within me. The whole world, which I thought was only black and white, was filled with color. I felt so happy, so alive. That was the day I promised myself that I would never let anything bad happen to you. I promised myself that I would never let anything make you cry. I promised myself that I would take care of you with all my being. At this point, Mom's smile became increasingly painful, as her eyes became completely clouded with tears that threatened to spill over. But I failed you. I couldn't take care of you. You suffered because of me. I feel so useless. I'm so useless. Please. Forgive me, son. Forgive me, Mom screamed, as bitter tears fell uncontrollably from her eyes, running all over my face, making my brain explode again. Why does it hurt so much? As an orphan, I suffered many things before becoming a professional. But seeing Mom cry now makes me feel like even breathing hurts. Those tears carry even more weight than the tears of any woman in my world. These are the tears of a defeated man. These are my mother's tears. Mother. I whisper, caressing Mom's eyes, trying to stop the tears from flowing, while my own tears fall wildly. Please, Mommy. Don't cry, please. I whispered, doing my best to keep my voice steady and speak properly without breaking down in the attempt, keeping all the tears away from Mom's face. I don't know what to do. I feel overwhelmed and in pain. The more I see Mom, the more I look into her eyes, the more I feel her tears, the more pain I feel. I feel the greatest pain of my two lives in my heart. My breathing becomes ragged and painful, my vision begins to blur even more,
as sweat runs down my back, but just when I thought nothing could be worse, a taste of iron rises in my throat. This is blood. Because. No. I can't let my mother see this. I quickly swallowed all the blood running down my throat. I felt weak and sore, but still, worry filled my thoughts, forcing me back to reality. I love you, Mom. You've always been the most important person to me, and you always will be. I didn't mean to say these things. I have trouble controlling myself, Mom. I can't control my feelings. But, I love you, Mom. I love you, Mom. Don't doubt it, I whispered weakly, doing my best not to fall asleep from the weakness that was overwhelming my body, while I continued to look lovingly at Mom, while she just looked at me with her reddened eyes. I have to do something. I don't want her to cry anymore. Hurts. It hurts so much. Mom, I was different even as a child. I didn't tell you before because I was afraid. But I remember everything in my life, even the moment I was born. I remember when I first felt you, I didn't know anything and only felt instinctive fear. But for some reason, I felt warmth coming from you. I felt your love. I wanted you to take me. I wanted to be with you, Mom. I don't need big things, Mom. I just need you. So please don't cry. As long as you're with me and don't leave me, you'll never fail me. I love you, Mom. I love you so much. I whispered, my voice weakening with each word I squeezed out, until I couldn't bear it any longer and fell asleep in his arms. It hurts me. Sleep, my baby. Eva whispered, caressing Christian's sleeping face. Unfortunately, our Christian would never see what happened after he fell asleep. His mother smiled beautifully, tears still streaming from her eyes, a smile he had never seen in his 2 lives, and then kissed him on the forehead before carrying him home in her arms. What are you doing at home? Shouldn't you be working? A high-pitched, irritable voice asked, referring to a certain child. If our Christian were awake, he would instantly know it was the bitch named Brian, a bitch who was frowning at this moment as she looked at Eva. Where are the children? Eva asked, momentarily ignoring Brian's question. They're in the park across the street. You left them alone. Eva exclaimed angrily. Relax, it's not a big deal. Isn't it a big deal? What if something happens to them? You know these places aren't very good. You don't have to worry, they just wanted to go for a walk, they were overwhelmed in this place, besides, I left them in the care of David, who lives next door. Sigh well. Eva answered wearily. Now tell me why you're not at work, were you fired again? Brian asked with concern. No, I picked Christian up from school. Eva answered, still holding the small white-haired boy in her arms. Eva arrived home a few minutes ago, but she didn't want to be separated from her little one and decided to lie down with him next to her. While she stared at the ceiling thinking about everything that had happened today, she still hadn't had time to take off her work uniform. But you already brought it, now you can leave. Brian sighed impatiently. I'm not working today, I asked for the day off. Eva answered, still looking at the ceiling, while gently stroking Christian's hair. You're not going to work. Do you think we have money to burn? We're living in a damn motel, you can't afford days off. Brian raised his voice, glaring angrily at the woman in bed. You know, I heard Christian scream and cry for the first time in his life today. Eva replied, ignoring his previous comment. Did something happen to him? Brian responded quickly, looking at the child in Eva's arms with different emotions, emotions that Christian would not have thought to see, from worry to sadness. Yes, a lot. Eva whispered, looking down at the bruise on her son's face, before lifting him up again and looking at Brian. I'm going to stop giving you money. From now on, whatever is needed in the house, let me know and I'll buy it, Eva informed, looking at Brian with hidden anger in her eyes. But honey, why? Brian stammered, his eyes widening as if the end of the world was about to arrive. Do I need to tell you why? Eva narrowed her eyes, looking menacingly at Brian, making him tremble at her pure gaze. Don't argue anymore, I'm not going to change my mind. But honey, you know I need to take my medication. He pleaded, looking at her with reddened eyes, completely aggrieved by the situation. Medication? You mean those drugs you hide under your mattress? What were they called again? Alprazolam. Mom spoke a little louder, glaring at him, but still trying to keep her voice down so as not to wake her son. Or do you mean the cocaine you hide in your clothes? Don't give me your victim act, I already said I'm not giving you money for your bullshit. I naively thought that even if you consumed that shit, you wouldn't let it influence how you raised your children. I thought that with what you went through in your life, you wouldn't do the same to your kids, but apparently you've fallen so deep that you don't know the shit you're doing. Eva shook her head, with obvious disappointment in her tone and gaze. Chapter 8, Confrontation Unedited. You. Brian shouted, glaring at Eva. What about you? Do you have something to say? Eva interrupted aggressively. I work all day to put food on the table for this family, and your only job was to raise our children with all the love in the world. But today I discovered that not only do you not do that, but you're cold-hearted enough to beat them every single day. So don't give me your victim bullshit. If you want to buy your bullshit, work for them. Honey, I would never raise a hand to our children. You shouldn't believe everything children say, they're just children. They usually lie. Brian screamed, her eyes widening in horror, causing a vein to bulge on Eva's forehead. Gently getting up from Christian's side, Eva approached Brian, looking directly into his eyes as his face contorted with rage. You still want to deny it? Are you saying my son is lying? Christian, the same boy WHO cried uncontrollably today because he couldn't take it anymore. The same boy WHO says his father is worse than a scumbag. That boy, Eva screamed, gripping Brian's jaw tightly with one hand as he trembled beneath her shouts. You're their father, Brian. You're supposed to take care of them. Then explain to me, why do my children hate their father? Why do they hate one of the people they should love most in their lives? Explain that shit to me. At this point, Eva's face was red with fury, while Brian's grip on her face was getting stronger and stronger. Sob I'm sorry. I don't know what I'm doing sob. Brian whispered, releasing Eva's grip with his hands, then quickly ran out into the street, closing the door behind him. Eva only looked at him when he left. When she heard the door close, her furious gaze completely collapsed, changing to a complex look as she stared at the door with guilt. But when she was about to take a step towards the man, she hesitated for a moment, turned around and looked at her son's peaceful face as he slept with a small smile on his face. It was then that her pain faded away and with a gentle look she went to lie down with her little boy. Upon reaching his side, he carefully observes his little prince, his beautiful pale skin, his soft features, his pale lips, his long silver eyelashes, his fine eyebrows, his slightly long hair. Every little feature indicates that he will be a very handsome man in the future. But all of that scares her. She can already imagine the horde of bitches who will come drooling over her little treasure in the future. Do I have to buy a gun? She whispers to herself, while stroking her little one's soft hair. Sighing as if her features weren't enough, there are her eyes. She still remembers when his eyes turned violet during the night. They were so beautiful that even she got lost in them for a moment. She never went back to the doctor to find out what was wrong with him, not because she didn't have money, but because she had known for a long time that her son was not normal. Eva has seen many movies in which scientists do horrible things to unique people, and while she imagines what they might do to her son, she dismisses the idea beforehand. They could tell him he's delusional, but with his son, he'd rather not take the risk. Furthermore, her son never had any health problems, never got sick, never lost his appetite, never cried, never let out a scream, not even at the moment of his birth. That's why it was so painful and yet so moving for her to see Christian display two emotions on the same day, even if the reason was something that hit her hard. As long as her little one could open up to her, she would be happy. She is his mother, and even if she is not with him, she has always been very concerned about his well-being. Even if he disguises it, he always checks his children's things when he gets home from work. He wants to know if he takes notes, if they have a diary that tells about their things, or anything that helps him know about them. He wants to be present in his children's lives in some way. But everything is so difficult. Her other children are very outgoing, they talk a lot and play a lot. She has no problem knowing what they think and what they want. But her Christian is the most difficult. He doesn't talk much or express himself much, always in his thoughts since he was very young. Even in his things she has not been able to find anything of him, apart from the many books he usually carries. Even today, she is sure that if she hadn't seen the bruise on his face, Christian wouldn't have told her what happened at school. But for the first time, he tells her something in his life and she ends up yelling at him. But she can't help it. She doesn't want her little boy to suffer, she just wants him to play with his friends, to be happy, to show genuine emotions, and to be interested in more than just reading. Even if his interest is fashion or clothes, she will make sure to give him everything he needs. But on the way to the motel, Eva thought a lot about everything that had happened and realized that she would prefer her son to have character rather than be submissive and delicate. She's sure women will flock to him like ants to honey, and the last thing she wants is for some slut to take advantage of his shyness. Her son hadn't grown up yet, but Eva was already starting to worry. And how could I not? Today, when her young son jokingly told her he had a girlfriend, she thought she was going to die. She instantly felt as if someone had ripped a piece of her heart out, leaving her momentarily breathless. That little joke opened his eyes. It made her realize that her son will not be a child forever. He will grow up to be a man. It might be a joke now, but what will happen in the future?
Eva knows that Christian will have to get married and leave with his future wife. But just thinking about it hurts her. When Christian was 3 years old, on one of those rare occasions when she is usually happy, he told her that he would marry her in the future, and although she knows it is just a children's game, that day was the happiest day for her. But now that her son is growing up, her hands tremble at the thought of taking him to the altar. Mother. Christian murmured, looking at the still stunned Eva. Yeah. Eva answered after a few seconds. She had been lost in thought for quite a few minutes, not noticing that Christian had woken up until she spoke to him. Nothing. Christian murmured, snuggling comfortably into his mother's arms, though he was still a little uncomfortable with the taste of blood that lingered in his mouth. He snuggled up to her for about 5 minutes, his head buried in her neck, not caring in the slightest about the fried smell his mother had from work. When he was satisfied with the warmth, he looked up, meeting her gaze. I can speak Russian, say hablar ruso. Cristiano spoke, with a clear awkwardness in his pronunciation, but it's simply impossible for him to have a perfect accent and fluency. Even if he's a genius, he needs practice to improve his pronunciation. What did you say? Mom asked agitatedly, even getting out of bed and looking at him in amazement. I said I could speak Russian. Christian responded naturally, looking at her seriously while inwardly gloating over her current expression. You, since when? Eve asked, looking at him in disbelief. A few years ago. Christian responded with a small smile, happy to release the burden that even he didn't know he carried in his heart. Is there anything else I should know? Mom asked cautiously, somehow sensing that this wasn't all. No. Well, yes, I also speak Japanese and French. Blinking innocently, Chris smiled, eager for her next reaction. But what happened next surprised him greatly, although in a way he had expected something similar. My son is a genius. Eva whispered over and over, as she stared in a daze at Christian, until she could no longer contain her excitement and threw herself at him. She kept him in the air for at least a minute, spinning him around and tossing him in the air and then catching him. To say the poor boy was dizzy would be a great understatement of his condition. Mom, I'm feeling dizzy. Christian exclaimed. He no longer knew how long it had been since he had touched something firm and was beginning to feel his stomach churning completely. H.A. But Eva didn't listen, she kept throwing it into the air just to catch it as it fell. Although Christian was happy to see her beautiful smile, he couldn't stand it anymore. Mom, I'm feeling dizzy. Christian had to yell at his mother to bring her back to reality, because the last thing he wants is to end up vomiting. But apparently the scream was not in vain, because Eva left him on the bed a few seconds later. Sorry, I got carried away. Ha, 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 ha. Scratching the back of her neck, Mom answered foolishly. Eva was happy, so happy that she lost her composure in front of her little son. All right. Chris muttered with a tired look, still feeling nauseous. Now tell me everything. Eva laughed joyfully, jumping on the bed, then lifting him up and sitting him on her stomach, happily holding his little hands. Do you really believe me? Christian asked, puzzled, as he stared incredulously at the beautiful woman smiling in front of him. He practically just said that he speaks more than one language and that he is a super genius, but Eva didn't even doubt his words and was happy, greatly surprising Christian. Of course I would. Why would I doubt my little prince? Eve replied curiously, and then she spoke excitedly. Now tell me what else you know. Well, I don't know what to say. Christian smiled gently, feeling this blind trust caress his heart in a way he had never experienced before. Since I was born, I've been aware of everything. Although I couldn't see when I was born, I could hear everything. Let me tell you, it's terrifying. I heard strange things that I now know were people talking. And people touch me all over, making my fear rise to another level. I don't remember anything before I was born, but I feel like I was somehow just sleeping, although everything changed when I was born. It was one of the worst things. I felt so cold, so very cold. That bump on my bottom hurt a lot too. Those people at the hospital have no feelings. She grimaced at the memory of those moments. But I felt like Mom. That calmed me down. It's really hard to explain how I felt about you. I just know I fell asleep with you. After that, I don't have many memories. I spent most of my time asleep, and most of my memories from that time are of you feeding me. I also remember when you almost pulled me out of bed while you were sleeping. Oh, and also when you almost dropped me because the Lakers had scored a point. The more he spoke, the more threatening Christian's gaze became toward his mother, making her swallow hard. I remember when I took my first steps. It was so annoying. I felt like I could walk. It's like an instinctive thing, only my legs were like Play-Doh. Now that he thinks about it, he has no memory of his mother spending time with his father. There are two possibilities. They did it while he was asleep or by sneaking around. He is deeply grateful for this, because he wouldn't know how to deal with those memories that would haunt him for life. Ha 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 Tilda, Mom laughed awkwardly, slightly turning her face away from her son's gaze. Chapter 9. Duck, unedited. But after I grew up I don't have many memories with you. Christian murmured sadly, while Eva just looked at him with guilt in her eyes. I have many memories. There's nothing in my life I don't remember. Although I don't remember everything exactly, since I didn't know the dates back then, but if you give me a reference and I was there, I could easily remember everything. Now that Christian thinks about it, he saw his mother naked many times when he was little, a spectacular sight it must be said, although back then she wasn't fully developed as she is now. He was practically looking at a naked teenager, something he has seen a lot in his free time, times when he used to unload his eggs, although almost never in real life. Whoa, that's amazing, Mom exclaimed, looking at him with a big smile on her face, while pride easily showed through her eyes, easily hiding her previous sadness. But, not everything is perfect, I murmured, frowning at Eva. Whenever I get emotionally upset, my memory works against me. For example, what happened this afternoon? When I got angry, all the bad memories I have come flooding back involuntarily, reminding me perfectly over and over again of everything I'd rather forget. And the worst part is, they're not just normal memories. One of those memories where you only see the image or something. I remember everything, from the sounds, to the smells, to the touch, to the emotions I felt. So if I remember something sad, the sadness of the memory will affect me. I didn't mean to yell those things at you, Mom. But I can't control myself. It's too hard for me, Mom. I'm sorry. At that moment, Christian's eyes reddened again, remembering how hurtful and idiotic he was to his mother became emotional torture. It pained his soul to recall her bitter tears, twisting his entire conscious being, something he wasn't sure he could ever overcome. Shish Tilda, his mother hugged him, burying him between her large breasts while comfortingly stroking his back. You don't have to feel sad, it's Mom's fault for not listening to you sooner. But, I tried to insist. No buts, I'm so glad you can finally open up to me, even more so now that we're spending time together. I don't want you to remember this day as a sad day, I want you to remember it as a happy day, the day my prince opened up to his mother for the first time, one of the happiest days of my life. Okay, Eva replied with a smile, playfully wrinkling her nose as she finished speaking. Christian nodded after some hesitation, but seeing Mom's happy expression was enough to make all apprehension magically disappear. Christian lay for a few minutes on his mother's warm chest, savoring the feeling of happiness that flooded his heart, making him relax completely, both emotionally and physically. Although he often denied it, in his past life he always felt sadness in his heart for not having someone to trust or love. This sadness shaped his former character. He was distrustful, tending to keep his distance from people for fear of being hurt. He was often in a very bad mood toward those who tried to get close to him, making his life very lonely, without friends, without family, without anything. Don't go to sleep, my prince, Eva whispered, bringing Chris's consciousness back to reality. You need to shower, and so does Mommy. Do you want Mommy to clean you up? I haven't had the chance in a long time. Eva spoke, giving Chris puppy dog eyes, making it impossible for him to even think about refusing. Okay, Christian agreed, a little embarrassed by the situation. Although his personality has completely changed due to his new life, he still has adult thoughts about women, and although he is just a child and therefore his body does not yet react to sexual stimulation, his mind is a different matter, which makes feelings of shame inevitable for him, much more so in the case of his mother, someone he loves deeply. Besides, even if he said on his deathbed that he'd sleep with anyone, even his mother, those were just the delusions of a dying man. He'd never thought of it in his normal state, but now. No. For the first time in his life he is feeling something akin to love, and he doesn't want to ruin it with mere lust or dying promises. Many might not think twice and take advantage of the situation, but Christian remains virginal and pure in relationships of all kinds. It's safe to say that his current love for his family is one of the most pleasant emotions he has ever felt, and he simply doesn't want to lose them for something he might regret forever. Alright, let's go. Mom smiled, standing up as she carried him in her arms like a princess, making Christian blush slightly with embarrassment, forcing him to look away. Hee Tilda, Eva let out a silly giggle at her son's expression. She led him to the bathroom with a big smile, until she reached the side of the bathtub and lowered him, turned on the water and manipulated the tap until it was at the perfect temperature, waited until it was full and turned off the water. With a gesture of satisfaction she turned around and spoke. Wait here, I'll get your clean clothes, I'll start undressing and wait for me in the water so you don't get cold, Eva said, as she came out of the bathroom with a big smile on her face. How could I not be happy? Her little girl has grown so close to her today, a weight that had been on her mind for so long has finally been lifted from her shoulders. She is so happy. If anyone dared to laugh at her for spoiling her child so much, she would surely beat them mercilessly, but still with a huge smile on her face. Christian was alone in the bathroom, staring at something so familiar yet so strange. They had been at the motel for days, but when the memories of his past life flooded in, it felt as if he hadn't been in this place for years. The bathroom wasn't luxurious or spacious, but it had all the basic necessities for one person. A bathtub, toilet, and sink, it even had a washing machine in one corner. With her mother's arrival imminent, she quickly undressed and jumped into the water, instantly enjoying the warm water. But upon entering the water, Christian realized that he had not yet seen her body directly since receiving her memories, so without waiting, he looked at the most important thing, her crotch. Phew tilde, Christian whistles, looking at his little friend dangling between his legs. Even though he's only 9 years old, his little one is already about 6 centimeters long in his sleep state. He's also as thin as his finger, but it's something that shows great promise considering he still has a lot of growing to do. Even he's somewhat small at the moment, measuring only 115 centimeters tall, 3.7 feet, where the general average for a 9-year-old is 120 to 125 centimeters, 3.9 to 4.0 feet. I'm sure Asian women would award me the title of beauty who brings down a kingdom, without hesitation. Christian murmured, feeling his ego reach greater heights the more he looked at her body. Her body had no muscles or anything unusual, but she had soft, pleasant, and healthy skin, something difficult to achieve without dedicated skincare. In addition, she finds her pale skin very beautiful, and best of all, she has it naturally. Huh, where's my duck? Chris muttered, glancing sideways as he noticed his rubber duck was nowhere to be seen. For years he has had the habit of bathing with his rubber duck. It may seem silly, but just having its presence in the water comforts him somehow. Even if he now has memories as an adult, a duck that has accompanied him for 6 years is not something that can be easily forgotten or overcome. After all, it is the first toy that was bought for him. Did my brothers take it out? No, they don't touch my duck. I murmur, feeling that the water isn't as comfortable as it should be. Getting out of the water intending to look for her duck, she leaves the shower carefully so as not to trip, but when she comes out she finds her mother coming in with towels and clothes. Is something wrong? Eva asked, looking hesitantly at her son who was looking around. My duck isn't here. We'll look for him later, get in the shower, you'll get cold. Mom answered, as she dropped all the clothes into the washing machine and walked to the side of the bathtub. She's a summer mom. Besides, I've never been sick. Chris murmured, stepping back into the lonely bathtub, sinking completely into it, leaving only my eyes above water. That's why you have to be careful. I once read that children who don't get sick when they're young are usually at very high risk the first time they do. Something about antibodies or something like that. Eva responded, pulling her shirt over her head, revealing her black bra that held her large breasts in place. Christian watched everything intently, making sure to retain this view for the rest of his life, staring deep into his mother's upper body. Eva has white skin, but not pale like Christian's, hers was pinker, showing that she was healthy. She had some stretch marks on her stomach, like pregnancy marks, but they were camouflaged very well with her skin, to the point that they were not easily visible. Her stomach was tight and somewhat defined, showing a bit of her abs, but that was to be expected from the work and constant movement she does, or so Christian thinks. And that duck, I've been saying for a long time that it should be thrown away. You also saw the report that talks about its dangers. A lot of mold and bacteria grow inside, it's dangerous for you. Eva spoke, taking off her bra with a swift pull, making her breasts bounce. But she's my mommy duck. She's been with me for so long that it feels weird right now. Besides, you know we can just wash it with soap and the bacteria will die. Christian answered, lifting his head slightly to catch his breath and speak, but without taking his eyes off his mother's breasts, which had a gleam in his eyes. Eva's breasts are beautiful and firm, which is normal considering she is only 23 years old at the moment. Her nipples look pink and soft, with a pink halo surrounding them. Sigh, when we're finished here we can look for him. Eva surrendered, a smile playing on her lips, as she bent down and removed her trousers, revealing in its full splendor the most beautiful penis Christian had ever seen, though he had only seen 2 in his life, one belonging to the woman he had been with before she died, and the other the one before him. His penis was round and firm, its circumference simply perfect from his perspective. I bring. Chapter 10, Bathroom. Christian swallowed, looking directly in front of him, having a simply perfect view of everything in the back, all thanks to his mother leaning her back to him. She still had her panties on, but they were in such bad shape that there was a hole or two in them in the buttocks area, giving her even more mental stimulation. No. Christian whispered softly, shaking his head quickly, then looking towards the water, doing his best not to look away. Did you say something? Eve asked, kicking her pants to the side as she watched her son concentrate, staring at the water. Nothing. Christian answered, without taking his eyes off the water, which confused Eva at his sudden, reflective, state. Sigh, don't be sad, I'm sure your duck must be out there somewhere, we'll find it. Eva said, thinking that her current reflective state was due to her rubber ducky, unaware that her son was getting lost in observing her body. Well. Christian murmured, sinking back underwater, while blowing bubbles into it. Okay, in the water. Eva laughed, quickly taking off her underwear and kicking it aside as she walked towards the shower, sliding one foot behind her son, then taking him in her hands and sitting with him on her lap. Sigh, how relaxing. Eva murmured, reclining in the bathtub as she hugged her beloved prince. This is something your father should talk to you about. But I'll take care of it, Mom whispered, gently stroking Christian's belly. My prince, Mom is going to tell you some important things now, so pay attention, okay? Amen. Christian nodded, leaning back on his mother's soft chest, which, along with her caresses and the warm water, brought him to the final point of relaxation. Okay, now listen to what Mom is going to tell you, because it's very important for your future. Eva whispered, with some tension in her voice. You have to be very careful with women. Most of them are nothing more than lustful beasts who won't hesitate to play tricks on you to get to you. Eva spoke in a serious tone. Do you understand? Oh, that conversation, thought Christian, smiling inwardly. I think I understand. What is a lustful beast? And why do they want to get to me? He asked with feigned doubt. This, in the future you will know. Just mark my words. She answered after a brief stutter. Well. Remember never to take anything served to you by women, not drinks, not juices, nothing. If you want something, serve it to yourself. Do you understand? Because they can put bad things in your drinks. What things? Things like, you don't need to know that for now, you just need to know that they're bad things. Oh, well. You also need to know, my son, that almost all women are bad people. They are simply driven by their lower bodies and their desires. They will try to get to you with different lies and deceptions. Just remember never to blindly believe everything they tell you, and never, ever, ever agree to go to their house alone, under any circumstances. There are many reasons they will give you, movies, food, etc. At this point, Eva knows that she could give her young son a very bad impression of women. She knows that not all women think lustfully the way she describes, but she is afraid. Her son will grow up to be a very handsome man, that much is undeniable. She just wants him to be extra careful against any kind of deception he might fall victim to. Eva now knows that her son is intelligent, even if he doesn't understand her words now. In the future he will understand everything, and his perfect memory will help him a lot to always keep her advice in his mind. Well. And most importantly, guard your purity, my son. Make sure your first time is with someone you love, and not with some random stupid girl because, whether you like it or not, everyone remembers their first time. What is purity? It's, in the future, you'll know. I see. Sighs, Mom. Yeah. What is stupid? Quote. Someone not very intelligent. I see. Christian nodded. Do you lie like those women too? Cough. Obviously not. Mom never lies, so neither should you. Of course, Christian replied, then spoke again. Mom. Yeah. Are you a bad woman too? No. Cough. No. Mom isn't a bad woman. I see. Chris nodded. Mom. Yeah. Would you put bad things in my drinks too? Cough. No. Mom would never put anything bad in her little prince. I see. Mother. Yeah. I love you. But his son's small comment instantly banished any frustration and nervousness he felt. Me too. Eva smiled happily, squeezing her son even tighter against her, savoring the feeling of relief from having the conversation with her little boy and knowing that he wouldn't be seduced by any whore. Oh, I forgot the most important thing, son. Mn. When a woman asks you out, you have to say no. Understood. Eva spoke in the most serious and deep voice possible, already prepared for the sudden question that would come from her son. Mn. But Christian simply nodded, without asking anything, simply agreeing. Do you understand why? She asked hesitantly. Mn. Oh, could you tell me? Isn't it obvious? Chris turned around, smiling at his mother, knowing what she meant. Quote. Question mark quote. Receiving a doubtful look from her, not knowing what she meant. Didn't I say I would marry Mom in the future? Christian smiled, looking at his mother's face. Oh, well. Eva answered calmly, but her current appearance was anything but calm. She had a stupid grin from ear to ear, more than happy to have the confirmation of her son, thinking that, if she continues like this for a few more years, she won't have to worry about some whore wanting to take him prematurely. It doesn't have to last forever, just until he turns 20, when she might let him find a girlfriend. Or at 21, or maybe better yet at 25. He'll think about it in the future. Okay, let's begin, Eva concluded, taking the sponge from the side of the bathtub and then rinsing it with liquid soap. After a few seconds, Eva began to rub Christian's chest and stomach, while he lay comfortably on her soft breasts. Raise your arms. Eva whispered, gently rubbing her son's now exposed armpits. Now bend down to wash your back. Eva spoke, still gently running the sponge over Chris's body. I don't want to. I'm comfortable. Chris whispered with a small smile on his face, while his eyes shone with obvious satisfaction. For him, this is simply heaven. Being cleaned while lying on large breasts is the most beautiful thing he has ever experienced. Sai, you can turn around if you want, that way you'll be more comfortable while I clean you up. Eva spoke, positioning herself a little further back so that her breasts were out of the water. Well. Christian murmured, feeling his heart pounding wildly with what he was about to do. Swallowing hard, he turned around slowly and robotically, but what he saw when he turned made him swallow even harder. Two beautiful, large breasts were right in front of his face, wet and glistening with water, while tiny droplets slid down them, adding to their allure in his mind. But without pausing, he quickly stored that beautiful vision in his memory, then rested his face on his mother's softness. Her whole world turned dark, but even a person who fears the dark would feel happy and calm here, due to the exquisite softness and warmth that surrounded her face. At this moment, Christian was thanking all that was holy for not being able to get erections yet. Just imagining how awkward it would be to have an erection right now made his face turn a little red. Sun tilde sun tilde sun tilde. Eva whistled an unfamiliar tune, gently cleaning every corner of Christian's body, while he was on the verge of unconsciousness due to several factors, such as the relaxation from his mother's touch, the calm of the warm water, or the very little air that entered his lungs due to two major things that made it difficult for him to breathe. There, now let's take advantage and clean your hair. Eve whispered, setting the sponge aside and then taking a shampoo in a bag from one edge and squeezing it a little, poured a few drops onto Christian's hair, then gently massaged it into his scalp. The new sensation elicited a relaxed sigh from Christian, who was melting with pleasure, his arms hanging loosely, his head was held without any strength on his part, his whole body was completely flaccid. Okay, you can get up. Eva spoke, after a few minutes, forcibly pulling Christian out of Cloud 9. Sai, thank you, Mom. Chris murmured, lazily climbing off her chest, but not before looking at her intently, then leaning back, touching the other end of the shower, getting for the first time a full view of his mother, something he had been trying to avoid. Resisting the urge to swallow, he glanced sideways at the crotch of the woman who had given birth to him. But because of the water and his position, he could see nothing more than her dark pubic hair and the edges of her penis peeking out from underneath. Needless to say, at this moment Christian deeply cherishes his perfect memory, even though he refuses to test anything with his mother because of his fear and love for her. That doesn't mean he won't be able to use these memories in the future for scientific purposes. Mom, should I help you clean your back? Chris spoke, looking into the eyes of his mother, who was currently washing her hair, her large breasts hanging in all their glory before his eyes. Doing everything possible to distract his attention from those beautiful breasts, naively believing that if his mother turned around and hid those breasts, everything would be easier. My little prince is so considerate. Eva smiled happily, standing up a little before turning around and returning to her son, kneeling with her in the bathtub, while with her right hand she handed him the sponge already soaked. Christian trembledly took his mother's hand, without taking his eyes off the beautiful man looking through the water, inwardly cursing his stupidity. But without wasting any time, he begins to gently rub his back in circles, while his gaze did not leave the beautiful view below. His was large and round, with an incredible firmness, but the most beautiful thing is his current view. Because his mother was on her knees, he pressed against her calves, causing her to rise even higher and giving her an incredible highlighted view of him. For Christian, whose greatest attraction to women is there. But as he rubs his mother, he realizes that his hand has to go lower and lower down her back, making his mind turbulent and his hands even more shaky, causing him to panic, and with all his willpower he focuses his attention on Eva's back. His mother's back was something unique to him. It had slightly defined muscles, while at the edge of her waist where her abdomen met her, stretch marks could be faintly seen on her taut skin. But somehow this puzzled him. He knew that hard work could improve a person's musculature, but his mother had the body of a woman who trained every day. Maybe the muscles were natural, but what's wrong with the skin on your abdomen? Shouldn't it be a little looser because of the pregnancy? Chapter 11, Fear. Mother. Chris asked hesitantly. Yeah. Do you exercise? Yes, every morning before work I spend some time doing push-ups, sit-ups, and squats. Why? There's no reason. Mom has a beautiful back. Oh, hee Tilda. Eva smiled foolishly. With every minute she spends with her little one, she becomes more certain that it is one of the best days of her life. What mother wouldn't want to be adored by her children? Even more so if the child praising her is one of her own. Eva always unconsciously made distinctions between her children. He treated his daughters a little harsher, while he treated his sons like jewels. Alan and Christian were practically his eyes, and although they didn't see each other much, whenever he had time he would always play with them, or at least with Alan, since Christian was always with his own things, and he didn't see a way to approach him. But with Ashley and Haley things are different. Although she doesn't treat them badly or anything like that, in her heart, she knows that she is a little stricter with her daughters. She just wants her daughters to be good women, have good jobs, and live happy lives. Her biggest nightmare is that they'll turn out to be lazy and never work, staying home forever, something all too common these days. But she, as a working woman, how can you allow your daughters to be leeches in the future? Eva loves her daughters very much, but she doesn't want them to resent being too lenient with them. Christian continued earnestly cleaning his mother's back, savoring her memories with something she would happily recall for the rest of her life. But when she finally came out of her trance, she realized that at this moment she was cleaning her mother's waist, which caused her hands, which she had tried so hard to calm, to move erratically from the nervousness that plagued her thoughts. Swallowing hard, he looked at his mother's nakedness and slowly lowered the sponge towards it, but the closer he got to the place he so wanted to touch, the more his mind became agitated, making his hands even more tremulous. But with one last deep breath, she dropped the sponge and took a step back, closing her eyes at that moment to maintain her composure. It was only a few minutes in which he eagerly appreciated his mother's body, but the moment he felt the need to touch her private parts directly, his mind was filled with guilt like a gigantic tsunami. She works all day for us, spending all her energy feeding us so we can have a life without lack, giving her all so we have a roof over our heads. She has given me nothing but endless warmth since I came into being. She cries for my stupidity and doesn't even blame me for my outburst, but she took all the responsibility for herself, even though I know that I was the stupid one. So what do? I look at her lustfully. The more I thought about my stupid behavior, the more my heart filled with guilt. I couldn't think of anything else but guilt and more guilt. But when Christian felt his feelings suffocating him, he instinctively grabbed the sponge and began to clean his own body, while his always active mind somehow calmed down. The only thing that brought relief spread through her mind, causing a great sigh of relief. She doesn't know why her feelings are so intense. In her past life she never experienced anything like this, but at this moment she simply doesn't want to think about anything else and just enjoy the temporary relief. Christian no longer thinks about the situation, the only thing on his mind is relief. Relief at not having to feel such extreme emotions, relief that the suffocation has ended. But in his relief, he was hiding something else that he doesn't want to think about. Fear. Fear of losing oneself at some point, fear of doing something stupid, fear of losing everything because of something one cannot control, fear of being alone again. Sigh Mom, you might have to come to school with me tomorrow. Christian spoke, feeling a pleasant sense of calm in his brain, which made him visibly relax. Yes, and even if they don't call me, I'd go no matter what. Eva replied, turning around in the shower to face her young son. Furthermore, what are those teachers doing allowing my son to suffer? Eva whispered with a frown, taking Christian's thin arms to hug him from behind. They talk to those children, Mom, but that only fanned the flames. Christian explained in a low voice, leaning back against his mother again. Sigh then I'm glad you stood up for yourself. What do those bitches think they are, hitting my little boy? Eva exclaimed angrily, not realizing that she had just cursed in front of her son. Hee Tilda now I doubt they'll even look at me. Christian laughed happily, playing with his little feet in the water. Ha 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 Tilda, Eva laughed heartily, looking at her little son with affection. They remained submerged in the bathtub for about 8 more minutes until the water began to cool and Eva spoke. Let's get rid of the dirty water and take a shower. Eva yawned, leaning forward to remove the water plug. Christian groaned, quickly closing his eyes at the sight before him, managing to maintain the calm of the lullaby sensation in his head. The water began to drain rapidly, until there was nothing left in the bathtub, leaving mother and son with the unpleasant sensation of cold on their wet bodies. Okay, you can get up so we can leave quickly. Eva spoke, turning on the rain shower with the hot water. Without thinking, Christian opened his eyes and stood up, calmly looking at his mother's body. When he reached Eva's side, she grabbed him by the shoulders and pulled him closer, letting the water run over them both as she washed all the remaining shampoo from her son's head, humming an unfamiliar tune in the process. Is that the hum of a melody? Christian asked in confusion. He had never heard a similar melody. It sounded heavy but light, like casual rock, but he had heard hundreds or thousands of different songs in his world, and in all languages, but he didn't remember anything like it. Yes, they're from my favorite band. Eva smiled, humming with much more emotion, shaking her head from time to time, reaffirming her opposition to Christian. What are their names? The Strangers were a very famous rock band. It's a shame they ended their career at such a young age. Eva explained excitedly, before changing her tone to regret at the end, still continuing to clean Chris's hair. What happened to them? He asked Christian in confusion, certain that this group didn't exist in his world, or if it did, they weren't famous, implying that many things had changed. The lead singer was accused of drug trafficking and ******, the group disbanded after that. And well, from then on their music started to decline. You have to know that women are a species that is easily swayed by the masses. The group's public opinion dropped and people stopped listening to them. But I still like many of their songs, even though I condemn much of what those women did. That doesn't take away from the good things in their music. Eva explained normally, letting go of Christian's now clean hair to wash her own. Only women, aren't men equal? Christian asked, puzzled. From his mother's words, he already understood that the band was made up of women, but that's normal if you think about the kind of world he's in. Oh, I'm not referring to women in general. I mean, woman, is like saying, human race, Eva explained after a moment of confusion. All over the world, people often say, human being, as, woman, but that doesn't mean they're only talking about women. It means they include both, man, and, woman, within that term. Oh. Christian nodded clearly, understanding the concept instantly. In his previous world, humans were generally called, man. It's easy to assume that in this world it's the complete opposite, and although it's strange to him, it doesn't really bother him much. List. Eva smiles, turns off the shower and grabs the 2 towels in the corner of the bathtub. Taking the smallest one, he begins to dry Christian's hair carefully, then starts to move down to his shoulders and continues with the rest of his body after a few seconds. I can do it, Mom. Christian exclaimed in fright as he felt his mother getting closer and closer to his penis. Nonsense, you're still little, let mommy dry you off. Eva smiled, continuing her work as she carefully dried him, wiping the towel over Christian's stomach. Christian could only close his eyes in the face of his mother's refusal and prepare himself for what was to come with fear and some excitement, until what had to happen happened, making Christian bite his lips at the pleasant sensation of his jewelry against the towel. But luckily for him, Eva simply rubbed herself for a few seconds and went on her way, causing a sigh of relief in his mind. Okay. Eva smiled, taking Christian in her hands, then lifting him out of the bathtub. Get dressed while I get ready. Yeah. Christian murmured wearily, feeling as though he had just gone through one of the worst battles of his 2 lives. Christian managed to get dressed without much trouble. He was wearing a pair of casual sweatpants and a light blue long-sleeved t-shirt. While Christian was getting dressed, his mother had already finished drying off and was almost dressed at this point, leaving only the upper part of her body naked, although she suffered a great struggle to look away when she was putting on her underwear. Let's go. Eva smiled, lifting Christian off the floor with one arm, placing him between her breasts, while with the other hand she grabbed all the dirty clothes, then calmly left the bathroom, still leaving her chest uncovered. Mom, aren't you going to finish getting dressed? Christian asked nervously, feeling his mental breakdown approaching with every passing second. But I'm already dressed. Eva murmured in confusion, looking down at her body. Oh, are you talking about my chest? Eva asked with a smile. Yeah. It's hot, it's very uncomfortable to walk around in so many clothes. Eva sighed, without stopping walking, much less thinking about her nakedness, making Christian's hands tremble as he thought about his future life. I guess this is normal. I used to walk around half naked during the summer anyway. Shit, now that I think about it, it must be amazing to visit a swimming pool or go to the beach. It must be amazing to watch the UFC too. 2 women fighting with their breasts in the air. Where do I sign up? Christian thought, an excited smile spreading across his face, and then his expression turned dull and dark. Doesn't that mean my future wife can be seen by everyone in those places? I'd rather die than allow that. Eva continued on her way to the beds, which, curiously, also serve as her dining room and kitchen. The motel room had 3.5 square beds. The older sister slept in one with Haley, her father slept in another with Alan, and Christian shared the last one with his mother. The room itself was rather small, with the 3 beds separated by only about half a meter, while a small plasma TV sat in the center. Chapter 12, Trick. But the important thing is that it has everything necessary. A mini kitchen that Eva brought from the old house, a washing machine from the motel, dishes, toilets, etc. But it must be said that the room was giving Eva more than one headache, all caused by the constant moaning that could usually be heard from the other rooms, making her nervous as she tried not to let her children hear it. Sigh, nothing better than relaxing after a shower. Eva sighed contentedly, lying in bed with Christian on top of her as she threw her clothes on the floor. Let's see what's on TV. Eva murmured, reaching out to grab the remote control that was in the corner of the bed, then hugged Christian to her chest with one hand while operating the remote control with the other. Boring. I've seen that. Boring. Eva spoke lazily, quickly changing the channel until she heard something on one that snapped her attention. We're live with the former drummer of the Strangers. A television reporter exclaimed, pointing to where the camera focused on a brown-haired woman with bags in her hands, apparently leaving a store. Damn, it's not her. Eva screamed, quickly sitting up in bed, scaring Christian to death with her sudden fall onto the mattress. You almost made me fall. Christian spoke irritably, looking at his mother with resentment in his eyes. And. Eva smiled awkwardly, hugging Christian again, only to instantly turn her attention back to the television. We're in downtown Detroit, Michigan, where, as you can see, you'll find the only member of the rock band who wasn't prosecuted. It is known that after the lead singer of this historic band went to jail 10 years ago, the rest of the quartet didn't get very far, with the guitarist and pianist being prosecuted 4 years later for drug trafficking. But not the whole gang took the wrong path. The journalist exclaimed, pausing at the end of her sentence to add intrigue. Olivia Brown, the famous 30-year-old British drummer, was recognized worldwide as one of the best in history, but unfortunately her career was tarnished by the members of the band she belonged to, causing him to disappear from the music world, where he even lost track of her in the country. But here it is again, live and direct for you. Let's go over so we can talk to her. The journalist spoke, quickly approaching the woman, reaching her side after a few seconds. Olivia Brown, the journalist exclaimed, pointing the microphone at the woman's mouth. It's a pleasure to hear from you again. Could you answer a few questions for your loyal fans? Sigh, I have no problem with that, but keep it short, I have things to do. Olivia answered wearily, looking at the camera with a small smile. Olivia could be considered a beautiful woman. Her hair was curly and light brown, reaching her shoulders. Her eyes were green with hints of blue, creating an exotic combination, while her lips were thin but full, with a bright pink hue. You couldn't see her body well because of the camera's focus, but you could see her breasts, which are around a B cup. She was wearing a brown leather jacket, with a gray sleeveless top underneath. Thank you, the reporter exclaimed, turning her gaze to the camera. Olivia Brown has agreed to answer some questions. Hear her answers exclusively on NBC. Olivia, why did you suddenly leave the world of music? It was due to various events that happened at that time, but the main reason was my exhaustion. I felt stressed with so many tours and concerts. All of this intensified when the legal investigations began, so after the entire legal case was over, I decided to take some time to travel and rest. It's a shame. Another great artist who couldn't cope with the weight of the music world. The journalist said sadly, then adjusted her expression and asked, could you tell us what you think about the crimes committed by your colleagues? I prefer to refrain from answering. I already said once that I would not comment on the matter and that I would only respond before a judge. I'm sorry. Sigh, our audience, we've tried. The woman sighed sadly, looking at the screen with disappointed eyes, then turning to look at the woman who seemed even more impatient. Olivia, one last question, I'm sure all your followers will want to know the answer. Do you plan to return to the world of music? The journalist asked, without waiting for the woman's confirmation. Honestly, no. I've already decided I don't want to return to that world. I apologize to all my fans who still support me today, but I've made my decision, Olivia replied, looking at the camera with a professional smile. But I won't retire before my last event. I had planned to announce it in a few hours, but I'll take advantage of the broadcast. I just spoke with the manager of 12 Oaks Mall, and he's given me permission to do a concert next to his store, all for charity for children with cancer. The concert will be performed by a group of friends, with me on drums. The concert also has the support of the mayor of Detroit, so the police will be supporting us throughout the scene. Remember, the concert will take place on Saturday, June 27th at 6 p.m. This will be my last live performance. Oh yes, we'll be selling raffle tickets at various points throughout the venue, and we'll also be accepting donations for the same cause, so please support it. See you there. When she finished speaking, Olivia raised 2 fingers in a peace sign and ran towards the exit, quickly getting into a waiting car. The journalist stared blankly at the spot where Olivia was running, but quickly regained her composure and spoke to the camera with a professional smile. "Well, you heard the woman. Olivia Brown will give her last concert and retire for good. I must say it's a great loss for the music world, but we must respect his decisions. She's saying goodbye to Angelica Miller, and this is NBC, Go Live." After she finished speaking, the camera changed, showing 2 women sitting with smiles on their faces, which made Eva quickly change the channel. "Sacred cow," Eve exclaimed, staring at the screen with shining eyes. "They're playing in this city." "Mom, are you going?" Christian asked, looking up at the ceiling with boredom. "Obviously, I'm not going to let this opportunity pass me by." "What's so special about her? She's just another drummer," Chris whispered lazily. "Just another drummer," Eva exclaimed angrily, taking Christian in her hands, then lifting him into the air and leaving him in front of her. "My son, today I'm going to tell you about the greatness of Olivia Brown," Eva said seriously, looking into Christian's eyes. "Please, no," Chris whispered with dead eyes, remembering the time when he was as big a music fan as his mother, feeling great shame at the memory. "I'll start with the biggest one. Did you know that Olivia started playing when she was 5 years old? Imagine that. At the age of 5, she was already playing the drums. I was still eating my boogers at her age." "UF. Christian exclaimed, looking at his mother with a disgusted expression, but she didn't care and continued talking. "But that's not all. He started playing in bands when he was 13 years old. At 13 freaking years old. But without a doubt, the most incredible thing is that at 15 she started playing with The Strangers, becoming the youngest famous drummer in history. You understand how great that is?" Eva exclaimed with a big smile, looking at her little son with bright eyes, waiting for his answer. "Well, it's certainly incredible," Christian murmured, instantly recognizing his mother's thought. "I had seen many musical geniuses in the world of music, but I had never seen one who managed to become world famous at the age of 15, undoubtedly a great historical milestone in music." "Yes," Eva agreed, turning her gaze towards the television, where recorded scenes of Olivia were shown, staring in a daze at the screen. "Thanks to her I started playing the drums. I wanted to be like her." "Do you play the drums?" Christian asked, showing real interest in his mother's words. "Yes, I played the drums from age 12 to 14. Eva murmured, looking nostalgically at the television. "So, what happened?" Christian asked, confused, only to open his eyes wide when he recognized the stupid question she had asked him. "Damn, it's obvious it was my fault," Christian thought bitterly, observing his mother's smiling expression, which made him fall into a slight daze upon seeing her beautiful smile. "I've found something better to do with my time." Eva smiled gently, looking at the child in her arms, then gently squeezing him against her chest, causing a small smile to appear on Christian's face, as he wrapped his little arms around his mother's back. "I love you, Mom," Christian whispered, as his heart warmed rapidly. "Me too, my little prince. Mom, I want to go with you to that concert," Christian whispered, pulling away from his mother's chest to look at her face. "Number?" Eva responded instantly, frowning at Christian. "Why not?" Christian asked, puzzled, tilting his head slightly to one side as he looked at his mother. "Because those places aren't for children." Shaking her head slowly, Eva replied. "Because?" Christian asked again, frowning, putting all his intelligence to work to find some way to allow his mother to take him. Christian understands that he knows very little about this world, and the more time he spends in this place, the more he feels he must become familiar with his surroundings. This is especially true when he considers how little or no information he has about the world. Damn. She barely even knows the clothing stores. Everything was bought by her father or mother. All of this is due to his former disinterest in everything. When he didn't have his memories, nothing mattered to him. He just spent his time reading languages or whatever other crap he found interesting. But now that he has his memories back, Christian knows how important information is. He needs to know how different the world is because all he can deduce is that the world is upside down, nothing more. Can you imagine the United States as a human farm to feed demons? It could happen. Because I say no, and that's all there is to it, I'm not going to change my mind. Eve responded angrily, frowning at her son. What do I do? Christian thought in bewilderment. He never had a mother or a father, let alone an authority figure in his life. Practically speaking, in the orphanage where he grew up, the children raised themselves. The nannies who were hired were lucky to make the food and nothing more. Usually, all their time was spent on the series or on their cell phones. So it's something completely new that someone wouldn't allow him to do something as common as go to a concert. Yes, for Christian it's common to go to a concert at age 9. But Mom. Christian tried to protest, snuggling his head against his mother's chest while his gaze was fixed on her face. Number. Eva exclaimed in exasperation, but within her eyes, Christian could see a slight hesitation, very different from her previous strict demeanor, which made her eyes sparkle at the sudden trick she remembered. Didn't they talk a lot in my other world about girls with puppy dog eyes? Christian thought, looking at his mother with a disguised smile for a second, then quickly changing his expression to a pitiful and sad one, while a pout hung from his lips. Mom, please take me. Christian spoke softly, his eyes slightly downwards, as a small pout formed on his lips, causing Eve to open her eyes wide in disbelief. Chapter 13, Demon. No. Eva exclaimed nervously, crossing her arms defensively as her gaze quickly shifted, doing her best not to look at that fatal expression, but unfortunately, her willpower with her little one is not much, causing her gaze to return to Chris a couple of times. Mommy, I love you. Christian whispered, bringing his pitiful face closer to his mother, then caressing his face with hers. Ag! Eva screamed in frustration, putting her hands to her head in disbelief, looking at her son's sad face in front of her, then sighing and speaking. Okay, you can come with me, Eva whispered wearily, but you'll have to stay by my side at all times and never let go of my hand. Do you understand? Children. Christian nodded quickly, his eyes bright, while staring blankly at his hands. I have great power. Christian whispered inaudibly, staring at his hands in disbelief. But also a great responsibility. Christian murmured, looking fondly at his mother, who was still pulling her hair in frustration, staring into space, not understanding what had just happened. I love you, Mom. Christian exclaimed happily, jumping directly onto his mother's chest, burying his face in them, causing the woman to snap out of her stupor. My little prince. Eva whispered softly, instantly embracing her little one, appreciating from the bottom of her heart every second that this wonderful day granted her. They shared each other's warmth, assuring one another that this day would be one of the best moments for both of them, something they would surely remember fondly in the future. Or with sadness, perhaps with pain, it could even be remembered with lust. Well, the important thing is that he will be remembered. We're here. A scream from a sweet voice was heard next to Christian, making him jump in fear. The mother and son had fallen completely asleep after a few minutes, causing a small ball of energy to wake them up with a scream when they arrived. What the hell? Christian muttered angrily, looking around in bewilderment. A lifetime of loneliness makes a scream upon waking the strangest and most horrible thing that could happen, but as he cursed, he remembered his new reality, causing a small, involuntary smile to spread across his face. Haley, don't scare me like that. Christian murmured, watching the little blonde girl trying to climb onto the bed, and failing miserably due to her lack of height, causing her to look at her mother with a beautiful pout, while Eva was still looking around, dazed from suddenly waking up. Then. Christian murmured, slowly getting up in bed, then crawling towards her, gently taking her hand, trying with all his might to pull her onto the bed, succeeding after a few attempts. Me too. Another voice was heard shouting, a small child instantly came to Christian's side, looking at him expectantly as he stretched his arms towards him. Let's go. Christian murmured with a small smile, reaching out to grab Alan, easily lifting him up and placing him next to Haley, who was already bouncing on the bed. Haley, Eva shouted, scolding, what did I tell you about jumping on beds? That he shouldn't do it because he might fall. Haley murmured sadly, instantly stopping her jumping as she glared at her mother in aggravation. Let's jump together. Christian exclaimed happily, quickly getting up to grab Haley's hand, as he began to jump, forcing her to keep up with him. Ha 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 tilde. Haley burst out laughing, jumping even faster on the bed, looking at her brother with a big smile on her face. I want something too. Alan shouted quickly, jumping onto the bed to grab Christian's remaining hand, leaping up with a laugh of his own. Children, sigh. Sighing with resignation, Eva watched her children jump up and down with gentle smiles, enjoying every second of the sound of their laughter in the room, forgetting even to ask who was the person who had brought them from the park. The brothers laughed and jumped for a few minutes that Christian enjoyed wholeheartedly, not missing a single second of his brother's happy smiles until he got bored and let go of their hand. I don't want any more. Christian spoke, throwing himself onto the bed, his face flushed and his breath coming in gasps from the constant jumping, while his brothers looked at him with disappointment. Brother, let's jump. Haley screams, bending down to grab Christian's hand, while looking at him with a sad expression, making Christian's eyes widen. He's using my power against me. Christian gasps as he turns to look at his mother, who is looking at him with an amused smile. I don't want to. Christian said, turning to hug his mother's leg. Christian, please. Alan spoke in a low voice, taking Christian's other hand, looking at him with a pout, causing Christian to curse openly. Shit, Mirda. Christian exclaimed. Fortunately his intelligence worked, and cursed in Russian because his mother would have instantly lost her smile if she had heard her innocent son's curse. I can't believe that a simple expression can be so complicated. No puedo creer que una simple mirada pueda ser tan difícil. He spoke Christian in Russian, resting his head on his mother's leg, while gazing absently at Eva's smiling face. What did he say? Haley asked, turning her gaze back to Alan. I don't know, but it sounded like the demons from the movies. Alan responded with a pale face, quickly looking away from Christian. Gulp idiot, Christian isn't a demon. Haley retorted quickly, but slowly backing away from her brother, only to look at her mother doubtfully. Alan, Eva scolded, looking amused at her youngest son. Don't call your brother a demon. But mom, Christians talk like demons in movies. Alan answered nervously, looking fearfully at his older brother. I'll eat your liver. Mi comeré tu hígado. Christian shouted in Russian, jumping on Alan with his eyes rolled back and his mouth wide open. Wah, eh. Alan screamed in terror, quickly jumping out of bed to run to the bathroom, only to slam the door shut, leaving only his muffled sobs in the room. I was just playing. Christian stammers nervously, turning his gaze towards his mother, noticing that Haley is hugging her tightly while she looks at him fearfully. Christian, Eva speaks calmly, looking at her son with an impassive face, making him shudder at her tranquil tone. Yeah. Come closer. And if. Nodding nervously, Christian slowly approaches his mother, always keeping his gaze downwards. Upon reaching Eva's side, Christian nervously glances up, immediately realizing that she is in bad shape, only to go blank when he doesn't see the angry look he expected on his mother's face, but instead is met with Eva's gentle gaze. You don't have to be afraid, it hurts me to see that look. Eva whispered, wrapping her free hand around Christian, gently stroking his back. I'm not going to scold you, much less hit you. Damn it, the day I hit my children will be the same day I stop being myself. Eva exclaimed angrily, then smiled again and looked her little son straight in the eyes. I know you just wanted to joke with Alan. But you have to know that your brother is still little, he tends to get scared by a lot of things. I know you're intelligent and you'll understand my words. Just try to be kinder next time. Yeah. Eva whispered softly, affectionately caressing Christian, causing his eyes to redden, while small tears formed at the edge of his eyes. Sniff. Christian experienced many things in his old orphanage, but what he always remembered and what marked him was the violence. From a very young age he grew up with beatings, every mistake he made ended with a beating. He was never told what to do, much less how to act or correct his mistakes, he was simply beaten and left to his own devices after a while. In a way, that treatment made Christian desperately search for what people called love. Unfortunately, his concept of love was something so embellished and fanciful that he only stayed with it until the moment of his death. So now, listening to his mother speak to him with obvious affection, he couldn't help but feel an incredible amount of overwhelming emotions, but only a few dominated everything: happiness and relief. Happiness at finally finding what I had been looking for so long, and relief at not having to go through the same thing I lived through for many more years. Mn. Christian nodded, looking with misty eyes at his mother because of the number of tears dripping from his beautiful eyes, but all this was happening with a big smile on his face, making Eva gasp because she didn't understand what had just happened to her little boy. Why are you crying? Eva asked nervously, quickly wiping the tears from her son's face. I love you, Mommy. Christian responded gently, softly embracing his mother's arm, visibly relaxing her, although doubt still lingered in her thoughts. I do more. Eva whispered, resting her head against Christian's, as she smiled softly, turning her gaze back to Haley. Do you see any demons in this pretty face? Eva asked playfully, looking down at Christian's smiling face, causing Haley to shake her head vigorously. No, the older brother is too cute. Haley smiled, approaching Christian and then patting him on the head, making him blush with embarrassment. A girl just patted me on the back. Someone called me cute, all in one day. What will happen in the future? Christian thought in horror. Will I act like a sissy? No, I'd rather die. But, I'll let it go for now. Just because it feels good. Of course he's cute, after all, he's my son. Eva smiled proudly, then turned her gaze back to the bathroom and sighed. Now let me go talk to his brother. Mn. Christian nodded, letting go of his mother's arm and then leaning back on the side of the bed, noticing after a long time that his mother still had her breasts exposed, causing a frown to crease his face. Have I gotten used to it already? Why don't I feel anything when I see them anymore? Have I adapted so quickly? Impossible. The more he thought about it, the stranger Christian's expression turned, watching his mother's back as she headed to the bathroom. Could it be because I'm still a child? But it can't be that. I clearly felt lust when I saw her in the bathroom. Cristiano. Haley's scream was heard, snapping Christian out of his stupor and making him turn his gaze towards the girl. Yeah. I'm bored. Haley exclaimed as she puffed out her cheeks in annoyance, making Christian smile and extend his arms to her. Come, hug your brother. I don't want to. Haley replied, playfully flicking her feet in the air as she lay down next to Christian. But I want a hug. Christian said, looking sadly at his sister. Sigh just a yes. Haley answered resignedly, approaching her brother's outstretched arms. Hee tilde I promise. Christian smiled with amusement, instantly taking his sister's small body into his arms. You still smell strange. Haley murmured, sniffing Christian repeatedly, causing Christian to look at her in confusion. Does it smell strange? But I just took a bath. Christian muttered, sniffing his clothes in confusion, realizing that they didn't have any particular smell, just the smell of clothes. Does it smell bad? Christian asked, frowning. No, the strange smell smells good. You said it still smells weird. Does that mean it had that smell before? Christian asked curiously. Are you stupid? Haley responded with a giggle. You always smell like this. Did you call me stupid? Christian asked in a low voice, looking at his little sister with narrowed eyes, momentarily forgetting the subject of her smell. Number. Haley shook her head quickly. Chapter 14, Emperor. No, I heard correctly. You called me stupid. Christian smiled, slowly getting out of bed, to remain kneeling over it, while looking at his sister below him with a big smile. It seems I have to command respect as the older brother. He slowly moved his hands to the sides of Haley's stomach, causing Haley's eyes to widen in panic. No, please. Haley pleaded, slowly crawling backward, pretending to get as far away as possible from the monster on top of her. Hee tilde. Christian smiled, quickly grabbing his sister's stomach, while his fingers moved maniacally over her. Ha 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 tilde. Laughing hysterically, Haley writhed all over the bed, trying with all her might to expel the beautiful monster on top of her. Brother, ha 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 tilde please stop. She screamed with tears escaping her eyes, trying to break free from Christian's vicious grip, but unfortunately without success, bringing an end to a torture of about 5 minutes. Did you learn your lesson? Christian asked, momentarily freeing Haley, while looking at her with absolute seriousness. Yeah. Haley nodded quickly, taking the opportunity to get up quickly from the bed, but without taking her eyes off the evil man. Well. Christian smiled gently, leaning back wearily on the bed. My whole body hurts. Christian groaned. Ever since I coughed up blood, for some reason, I started to hurt all over. But what hurts the most is my heart. I feel like it's tearing me apart. Am I sick? Christian whispers, slowly raising his trembling hand. But I don't remember anything like this. It's the first time this has happened to me. He smiled bitterly. It's all right. It's just a body ache, I've suffered worse. Clank. There was the sound of the bathroom door closing, making Christian turn his head, finding his brother Alan in his mother's arms, looking at him with red, trembling eyes. List. Eva exclaimed with a tired smile, pulling her youngest son towards Christian. Anything you want to say to your brother? Eva asked, sitting down next to Christian. Yes. Christian nodded, slowly sitting up in bed, looking at the crying child. I'm sorry I scared you, I was just playing. See, Eva whispered with a smile, pinching Alan's chubby cheeks with her fingers. Your brother just wanted to play with you, he didn't mean to bother you. But Mom, I don't want to play that. Alan exclaimed through his tears, wiping the tears that were dripping from his eyes with his clothes. What do we talk about in the bathroom? Eva asked with a frown, looking sternly at Alan. Yes, Mom. Alan nodded reluctantly, then turned to Christian, clear anger in his eyes. I didn't mean to call you a demon. But you're scared. Alan. Eva exclaimed angrily. Yes. Alan nodded quickly, looking at Christian with aggravation. You're not afraid. Good, Eva smiled, lifting Christian with her free arm, then sitting him on her right leg, next to Alan. You are my little princes, you have to learn to take care of each other. I am the good prince. Alan exclaimed quickly, instantly changing his sad expression to a cheerful one as he looked at Christian with a haughty air. I don't care. I'd rather be the emperor, Christian smiled, snuggling gently into his mother's chest. Tilting his head to one side, Alan asks, confused, what is an emperor? You're a prince, the son of a queen, right? Christian asks with a small smile, instantly receiving confirmation from Alan. The emperor is the king of queens, who rules over all queens and kings. Shaking his head quickly, Alan replies, you can't be an emperor. Because I don't want to. I don't care, I'm emperor and you're your prince, respect me. I said you can't. You're just a prince, you can't tell me what to do. You are not an emperor. Don't tell me what to do, little prince, because if you bother me, I can force you to marry the evil princess. No. Yeah. Mom, Alan exclaimed, crying, as he turned to Eve. Tell him he can't be emperor. Ha 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 tilde, Eva laughed, then looked at Alan with a conflicted expression. But Alan, your brother can be whatever he wants. But Mom, exclaimed Alan, frightened, she wants me to marry the evil princess. Eva simply looked at him with an amused smile, then turned her gaze back to Christian. Christian, don't marry your brother off to the evil princess. Okay, then I'll marry you off to the ugly princess. He smiled slightly at Christian, looking at his brother's horrified face with amusement. Mother! Alan exclaimed fearfully, hugging Eva's arm tightly, which made Eva shake her head in amusement. Don't worry, I'll tell your brother to forgive you. Eva smiled gently, stroking Alan's head, then turned to look at Christian. Could you forgive your brother? Okay, but you have to obey me. Christian nodded after a few seconds of mock conflict. Look, your brother won't let you marry the ugly princess, you just have to obey him, Eva agreed, turning her gaze back to the aggrieved Alan. Well, thanks, brother. Alan nodded with teary eyes, no longer daring to look at Christian. Why Haley? Eve asked with a frown, looking around, noticing that her daughter was nowhere in sight. Quote. Hesitantly, Christian looked up over his mother's shoulder, glancing at his sister, noticing something that made him laugh. Getting out of bed, Christian went to the bed on the other side, while Eva looked at him perplexed. Haley tilde where are you? Christian whispered playfully, slowly approaching the pair of feet sticking out of the bed. Come out wherever you are, your cute brother wants to play with you tilde. The feet under the bed twitched, causing Eva to relax her frown, as a smile crept across her face. What do we have here? Christian whispered, quickly grabbing both of her feet, only to yank them out forcefully, and find himself face to face with the flustered Haley. I found you tilde. Please, no more tickling. Haley exclaimed, quickly bringing both hands to her stomach in defense, while looking warily at the wicked child. My little sister tilde, Christian smiled creepily, gently stroking Haley's face, making her tremble nervously. I wasn't going to tickle you, but since you insist. No, wait. Haley tried to stop him, but Christian was faster and attacked her sides of the ribs mercilessly. Ha 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 tilde. Stop it, ha 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 ha. Ha 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 tilde please, ha 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 ha. Mom ha 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 tilde help. Haley pleaded with laughter, doing her best to pull her brother off her back as small tears slid down the edges of her beautiful eyes. Are you sure you don't want to be tickled anymore? Christian asked gently, looking into his sister's eyes. Ha tilde. Haley breathed heavily, staring up at the ceiling with hazy eyes, only to quickly snap back to her senses and frantically nod, yes. Sigh what a shame, I was having fun. Christian whispered, slowly pulling his hands away. If you hide from me again, we'll play again. Understand? MN. Haley nodded even faster, quickly disentangling herself from her brother's grasp, swiftly getting up from the ground to run towards her mother, while hugging her free arm tightly, without taking her eyes off the little white-haired demon. It only took a day to tame these little rebels. Eva murmured with an amused expression. Mom, I'm hungry. Christian said as he put his hands to his stomach, looking at his mother with the most pitiful expression he could muster. It should be dinner time by now, Eva agreed, as she left her two agitated bodies on the bed, getting up to head to the kitchen, but on the way, she glanced towards the door, causing a frown to appear on her face. Where could that man be? Sigh priorities, Eva muttered bitterly, as she opened a small box and took out a packet of rice, while with her other hand she grabbed an empty pot in the corner, instantly refilling the little rice that remained in the bag, as her gaze shifted to the carton of eggs near the small stove. Rice with fried egg, a delicacy. So, how do you cook rice? Eva whispered, confused, looking doubtfully at the pot she placed on the stove. Add a little oil and turn on the heat. You have to fry the rice a little in the oil until the rice changes color a bit. Then add 2 cups of water for every cup of rice. With what you left in the pot, there should be 4 cups of boiled water. When the water is in the pot, add a little salt to your taste. I think a teaspoon will be enough, Christian replied boredly, as he lay down on the bed. Do you know how to cook? Eve asked, puzzled. I found it in a book. Christian answered vaguely, as he remembered perfectly how many times he burned rice in his old life. Undoubtedly, cooking was one of his greatest challenges to survive. How come you read so many things? I get bored reading magazines, let alone books. Eva murmured curiously, instantly following Christian's advice to boil water in an electric kettle. Mom, can I borrow your cell phone? Christian asked after a few minutes of boredom, while his brothers were already grabbing the television for themselves. So that? Eva asked with a frown, stopping stirring the rice in the pot to turn towards Christian. I'm bored, I want to find something to learn. Okay, but use it carefully. Eva agreed after thinking for a few seconds, quickly taking her cell phone out of her pocket and throwing it on the bed. MN. Christian nodded quickly, instantly picking up the cell phone at his side as he looked at it curiously. Isn't this the Nokia N97? Christian thought curiously, carefully turning the phone over in his hands, instantly noticing that the brand name was on the back. Yes, it's a Nokia. That means not only are the countries and religions the same, apparently, the brands are still the same too, even their models are the same. Christian reflected with a strange smile. I always thought that watching those strange videos that YouTube recommended wouldn't do any good, but I watched them anyway out of boredom. Who knew it would help me at this moment? Let's see, Christian murmured, turning the cell phone over and then lifting the screen with his thumbs, making it show its splendor. The cell phone was curious to Christian. It had a touch screen, while a small QWERTY-style keyboard was below the screen. Something very novel to Christian, who had known about touch cell phones since his childhood, completely unaware of the experience of older cell phones. In fact, his first cell phone was the iPhone 24. It's like a laptop, Christian smiled, his face clearly showing how impressed he was. Let's see, where's the internet? Sliding his finger across the screen, Christian began to operate the cell phone, quickly adapting to its handling, but with a clear dissatisfaction in him, which was shown through his frown. This touchscreen sucks. Christian muttered in annoyance, pressing the screen again and again, but it was in vain when he opened the small globe icon. Why isn't this shit working? Christian muttered angrily, pressing the icon a little longer, so that after about 40 seconds, the app opened. Sigh finally. Let's see. It's 2009, if I'm not mistaken. Eminem was uploading his albums to YouTube around this time. Turning his gaze for a moment to the keys, Christian searched for YouTube in the browser, finding it after a hellish 90 seconds, cursing more than once along the way. This awful internet could drive me crazy. Christian whispered wearily, as his fingers navigated the antiquated YouTube interface, carefully appreciating the number of videos displayed only at the beginning. Chapter 16, Emotions. First things first, quickly pressing the pager, Christian searched for Eminem, feeling nostalgic for his voice. It feels like ages ago. 1 second. 5 seconds. 20 seconds. 1 minute. Shit, Christian shouted in annoyance, a vein bulging on his forehead, but he didn't forget to switch his language to Russian. Swearing in this language definitely feels great. Sigh finally. Christian sighed wearily, glancing with satisfaction at the screen displaying the results, but a few seconds later, his expression froze for a moment, only for a bitter smile to appear on his face. I should have thought about that. There was nothing about Eminem, literally nothing. The search engine gave him the typical, no results, warning. Frowning slightly, Christian searched for the bastard who murdered him in his old life. The no results message appeared instantly, drawing a smile from him. It would be cool to see your female version. Although it would be great to fuck your counterpart, too bad. Christian thought with a strange smile, quickly exiting YouTube to head towards the Google search engine, looking it up for every celebrity from his former life. 30 minutes later. Sigh, what a strange shit. No one from her own world is there. Even the current president is different from the woman she remembers from her past life. The current president is the first black woman president, although it must be said that she doesn't resemble the Michelle Obama she remembers. The current one is heavier, much heavier, and her features are completely different. But the curious thing is that all the surnames of the big families in money and politics are the same, even the surnames of famous companies remain the same. Something similar happened with the major brands, most of them remained iPhone, Gucci, Louis Vuitton. Or rather Louisa Vuitton, which did change in this world, even in this Trump organization. Let's see, the weird ones. Christian searched for the band his mother loved so much on YouTube, where thousands of results appeared. He quickly clicked on the first song that came up. Minutes later. What great music, Christian murmured, his eyes sparkling. The drums, the vocalist's husky voice that strains when she lifts her head, the sound of the digital piano. Everything is perfectly balanced, with a somewhat classic drum sound, but without being forced. It makes you think that at some point the cymbal tone will increase, but it always keeps you in suspense and interested. It even has a great bass added by some beatmakers. I have no doubt that in my world it would be a huge hit. But most importantly, that vocalist, she's hot. Mom, Christian exclaimed excitedly, quickly looking up at where his mother should be, only to cut himself off when he realized she had left at some point. Where did she go? Haley, where's Mom? She went to look for Dad. Haley answered lazily, not for a second taking her eyes off the television. That piece of shit is already causing problems. Christian muttered with a frown, then shook his head and turned his attention back to his cell phone, thinking about enjoying all the songs by this band. Outside the motel room where Christian and his family reside, Eva could be seen standing in front of the door of the next room, nervously listening to the shouts coming from inside, instantly recognizing her man's voice. What should I do? Eva murmured conflicted ly, looking at the door with a pained expression. Sigh, I have to stop him. Hit. I'm coming. A scream was heard from inside the room, while footsteps sounded closer and closer to the door, but the crying never stopped. Clank. Yes. He peered out from the doorway, glancing cautiously outside, only to turn back to the person and raise his eyebrows in recognition. Oh, it's you. Do you need something? David, how is Brian? Eva asked with concern, completely ignoring the man's venomous tone. How should he be after the way you treated him? David asked sarcastically. Could you please stop interfering in our affairs? Eva responded with a frown, looking annoyed at the man in front of her. I couldn't care less about your business, but I consider Brian a friend and I won't let you walk all over him. What the hell do you know? Eva shouted angrily, then put her hand on the door and pressed down on it. I'm not going to bother you, I'm here for my man and I'm leaving. Don't you dare, David shouted from the other side, quickly pushing the door shut, causing a struggle with Eva. Shit, Eva exclaimed angrily, pushing hard on the door, only to end up frustrated when she realized it was locked, causing it to open only slightly. David, stop fucking around and open the fucking door. Go to hell or I'll call the police. David shouted, showing his cell phone from the doorway where the emergency number was already dialed. I just want to have a conversation with Brian. Eva exclaimed angrily, but stopped struggling with the door. And I just want you to fuck off. David yelled, instantly slamming the door. If she wants to talk to you, she'll come to her room. Now stop bothering me and get the fuck out of here. Eva stared at the door, her face red with anger, her fists clenched tightly in frustration. Dad. Fucking bitch. Eva yelled with a dark expression, kicking the door hard, then turning and walking towards her room. Nananana tilde Batman tilde, sang Christian happily, as he slowly stirred the rice in a pot. A few minutes had passed when the smell of burning reached Christian's nose, causing him to jump up in a panic. He looked at the rice and realized that, although the water was dissolving, it still wasn't fully cooked. So he added another half cup and stirred the pot. However, it was quite difficult to reach the pot, as the stove was on a cabinet, out of reach of Christian's small stature. This forced him to carefully climb over the edges, and even now he was bent over the cabinet as he stirred the rice. Clank. Hearing the sound of the door, Christian turned around, meeting his mother's dark expression. Everything all right, Mom? Yes, Eva responded instantly, but the moment she turned her gaze back to her son, her voice broke, as her expression turned to fury. What are you doing? Running quickly towards Christian, Eva grabbed him in her arms and pulled him down from the furniture, turning her furious gaze towards him. What the hell were you doing? Mom. Don't talk. This time she lowered her voice a little, but still glared angrily at her son. What if you had fallen? Or what if you had been burned? Don't you think about that shit? But Mom. I said not to talk. Eva exclaimed, grabbing Christian by the arm to pull him toward the bed. I don't want to hear your excuses. You're staying in bed until dinner, and I don't want to find you watching television. Picking Christian up, Eva threw him onto the bed, then turned and walked towards the rice, while Christian looked at her with reddened eyes. Why did you get so angry? I just wanted to prevent the rice from burning. It's not my fault that I left the rice unattended. She didn't have to treat me that way. They're not even my family. I have no family. I'm never going to have a family. I don't even mind being alone. Everything is simpler. Who needs a family? It's just another burden. I don't need them. I lived my whole life without a family, I managed to become a successful professional, I even almost got a girlfriend, all on my own. I guess I can do it all again. That's 10 more years of survival. It's no big deal. I know they're not my family. I know I don't need them. They are strangers to me. I shouldn't worry about anything. I never cared about anything. So. Because. Why does it hurt so much to think this way? Why do I feel they are so important to me? Why does it hurt so much just to think about leaving my family? Why do I feel so much pain when I think about my world without them? Why do I feel like they were always with me? Why do I do? I don't like these feelings. They're so irritating. I hate them. I hate them. I despise them. But me too. I love them. Thank you. I am not alone in these feelings. They made me realize that there is more to endure and keep going. I don't know what to do. Everything feels so confusing. Mother. Sob. I feel so bad. Sniff. Please. Sniff. To enlighten me. Sniff. I'm sorry. When I felt a cold sadness overwhelm my being, a warm embrace came from behind me, while a soft voice reached my ear. I was a little stressed. That's why when I saw you there I got scared and acted badly. My prince, I'm sorry. Mom whispered dejectedly, as she hugged Christian with a little force. Sniff. I just wanted the rice not to burn. Sniff. I spoke through tears, as I slowly snuggled into Mom's embrace. But you Sniff just shouted at me without asking. Sniff. I don't like that, it makes me feel bad, really bad. My prince, Mom whispered sadly. Mom was wrong, I acted badly, can you forgive me? Turning my head slightly towards Mom, I watched her out of the corner of my eye, examining how her beautiful eyes showed weariness and reflected an obvious sadness, making me sigh inwardly, like a pout forming on my lips. Could it be? Could it be? Mom whispers, confused, looking up at me with obvious doubt, observing my childish expression thanks to the pout I'm making, which causes a big, beautiful smile to spread across her face. Oh, what can this poor woman do to make the prince forgive her? It depends on how sorry that poor woman is. I whispered ambiguously, as all negative thoughts began to leave my mind, causing only the feeling of happiness to flood my body, even trembling slightly from the sudden surge of feelings. What could a poor woman do for a sad prince? Mom whispered playfully, glancing sideways at my stomach, making my mind freeze for a moment. Oh, I know, I just have to make the prince laugh. No, wait, I shouted quickly, understanding the meaning of her words. Unfortunately, it was too late, my mother's hands had already mercilessly assaulted my small tummy. Ha 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 tilde. I instantly squirmed in bed, while my mother quickly got up to tickle me all over, making me laugh non-stop, while I could see out of the corner of my eye that my brothers were fearfully watching this whole scene. Stop. I yelled through my tears, causing Eva to slowly back away from me, but with a big smile on her face. Oh, you're not sad anymore, my prince. No, I'm very happy. I smiled broadly, quickly drying the tears that had accumulated during the intense moment. Glad to hear it. Mom commented with a smile, as she lay down next to me. This feeling is beautiful, I murmured, dazed, feeling happiness make my heart beat calmly, while a small sensation of ecstasy strangely comforted my body. I realized that my feelings were out of control. Part of me wanted to scream and curse at the complaints, but another part just wanted to hug me and be pampered. I don't know if it's because my body is that of a child, which makes my ability to hold back tears or control my emotions still deficient, but if I think about it logically, I doubt it. I can feel how my feelings are much more intense than those I used to experience in my other life. Even in this life as a child, I didn't suffer such emotional changes, it all started the moment I awakened my other memories. Clearly, some time ago my mind was full of lustful and dangerous thoughts, but suddenly it was all over. At the same time, I came to feel so much sadness that, somehow, it ended up damaging my body. I even ended up spitting blood like the Chinese in their novels. I became so angry that, for a moment, I lost my temper with the simple children. But the most beautiful thing is my current feeling, happiness. It feels so euphoric and incredible. I even have the feeling that right now I could do whatever I wanted without any problem, as if the world were in my hands. I feel so alive. But I can feel so bad. I like all these feelings, but at the same time, they scare me. Will I do something I'll regret someday? Most likely, yes. I haven't even been in this world for a day and I'm already almost mistaken about my mom. Chapter 17, Future. Are you still sad? A soft voice sounded beside me, waking me from my momentary stupor, turning my head towards my mother, who was looking at me with concern. No, I'm very happy. I shook my head in denial, as a smile formed on my face. Then why does my prince look so sad? Nothing, I'm just hungry. I whispered after a few seconds of thinking, I just didn't want to worry Mom, she already has a lot to deal with, a child with unknown problems is not something she wants to add to her plate. Oh, give me a minute and I'll cook you some eggs. Mom smiled, quickly getting out of bed to head to the makeshift kitchen. Family. I murmured inaudibly, as I gazed at my mother's back with beautiful feelings inside. Who knew it felt so good to have one? What will become of my old mother? Honestly, I never really thought about it that much, since I always thought I didn't need them. But now, when I experience their warmth, it makes me feel bad to remember those who should be my family in the other world. Why did they abandon me? Did something happen to them? Did they simply not love me? Why don't I know anything about them? Although I remember my entire other life, I have no memories from before the orphanage. Because my earliest memory begins at the age of 4. But why do I have no memories from when I was a baby? In this life, I remember practically everything, except for the time I was inside my mom. I even think I was asleep the whole time, so I have nothing to remember. But in my previous life, everything is very strange. I remember practically nothing from before the age of 4, as if I were asleep all the time during that period. At least that's the only logical explanation I can give for this case, since I find it very difficult to doubt my current memory, with which I can even remember voices perfectly. So the question is, what is the reason for the lack of memories? Wait. Why am I forgetting the most important thing? Why did I reincarnate? How did I reincarnate? Who am I? Christian or John? My memories. Your memories. I'm not sure. Sometimes I think I've always been a Christian, but many times I think I'm John. I thought it didn't matter, but now I realize that I feel very uncomfortable due to a lack of identity. Are these feelings I have about my current family really mine? Or do they belong to Christians? These doubts I have about my family. Did they come from one or are they mine? Why did I put aside the topic of my reincarnation again? What brought me into this world? A god. An ogre. Unhada. The damned Lucifer. Let's eat. A scream was heard beside me, which made me quickly turn my gaze, finding in front of me a plate of rice with a fried egg, making my stomach rumble. Who cares about those annoying things? Food is more important. I whisper with a smile, quickly taking the plate in my hands, as I sit down on the bed. On that note, I whisper with a frown, as I take the baths next to me, then I turn my gaze to my mother and ask her, where's my older sister? What time is it? Mom replied, confused, reaching for the cell phone beside me. It's already 9 o'clock, I should have been here a long time ago. Maybe he stayed longer with his friends. I replied after thinking for a few seconds. Honestly, I don't see the problem with being late, but I understand my thinking is somewhat liberal. Because of my lack of rules, I could practically arrive anytime I wanted at the orphanage, as long as I showed up and wasn't gone for more than a day, and didn't get caught, everything was fine. Although I usually had to jump out the window, as they would close the doors and I would end up getting locked out. No, she knows I don't allow her to stay out so late, Mom replied with a frown, as she dialed an unknown number on her cell phone. Noise. But just as I was about to press the button to scream, a loud noise caught our attention, causing us both to turn our gaze towards Alan, who was staring at the floor in a panic as his food plate lay broken on the ground. Alan, Mom exclaimed worriedly, jumping out of bed and running to my brother, are you okay? My food, Alan whispered, staring at the food lying on the floor with tears in his eyes, as Mom took his hands, checking him thoroughly for cuts or wounds. Sigh, it doesn't matter, there's plenty of food left. Mom sighed after confirming that Alan was okay, then got up and grabbed her plate of food from the other bed. Eat this for now, I'll get another plate after I finish cleaning. Alan nodded quickly taking the plate, then lay down next to Haley and went back to watching television, as if nothing had happened. It's a pain having to sweep the rice off the floor, Eva muttered as she served herself some rice, making sure to leave enough for 2 more plates. It took her more than 10 minutes to finish sweeping everything. She practically got bored halfway through and picked up the rice with her hand, since she simply couldn't manage with the broom. The rice was stuck to the floor, eliciting more than one frustrated groan from the poor woman. Having finished serving herself, Eva just looked at the 2 remaining eggs and sighed, then turned and lay down next to Christian, who hadn't touched his plate of food at all. Is something wrong? Didn't you like the food? Eva asked hesitantly. Yes, I like it, I was just waiting for you. What a polite prince, Eva smiled warmly, as she began to eat. Here, Christian whispered, taking half of his egg and then quickly bringing it to Eva's plate. Why are you giving it to me? I'm not very hungry. You have to eat or you'll stay small forever, Eva replied, taking the egg to try to put it back on her son's plate. I like being small, Christian replied, quickly lowering his mother's hand. Eva stared at Christian for a few seconds with a serious look on her face, while he continued eating in a carefree manner, then she smiled gently and ate. And tell me, have you thought about what you want to do when you grow up? Eva asked indifferently, while glancing sideways at the boy next to her. Christian froze upon hearing that question, his mind going blank as he pondered something so important. What do I want to be when I grow up? With my intelligence, I could be anything I want. Also, although I haven't confirmed whether I have better physical abilities than the legends, I do know that if I start early, I could be a great athlete. But we need money fast. Mom does everything on her own, I can't afford to go to university. Although I could also apply for a scholarship. No, that would just be gambling, too much time and too little chance. Music. It would be easy to adapt the music from my old world to this one, but I don't have a computer or anything to start recording with. Besides, I need to be a teenager to start without any problems. Although I could also play the piano or some other instrument. In my previous life I learned to play piano, keyboard, guitar, bass, electric guitar, drums and guqin, that practically made me famous in music, since I knew how to arrange or modify the songs of almost all artists in the best way. I even remember almost all the great compositions from my other world. Although I don't know if they exist in this one, I suppose I'll investigate later. The more he thought about being Christian, the more he frowned, realizing that there weren't many things he could do at this age, at least not things that would make him money quickly, since with money he could do endless online jobs that would help him with whatever he wanted. What do I do? Lots of options, small budget, but the most important thing is time. I don't want Mom to be overburdened by her jobs. If I tell her I want to go to university, she'll most likely raise money or take out another loan. The worst part is I wouldn't earn money for another 18 years. Holding his hands to his head, Christian entered an existential crisis, working his brain to the maximum capacity to find a solution. Quick money, no problems because of my age, ask for a very small budget. I should have read those typical, get rich, or, millionaire mindset, books. 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 Christian exclaimed excitedly, as he remembered the many books he read out of boredom, all the bestsellers in the literary world. Turning quickly to his mother, Christian replied with a big smile, I'll write books. Huh, Eva replied foolishly, looking at her son with impressed eyes. I asked him about his future to confirm one of my doubts, but I never expected a coherent or serious answer. But you could see the confusion on his face when I asked him. Did he really decide something as serious as writing books in 30 seconds? How childish he is. Eva isn't that stupid. She realized Christian gave her part of his egg when he saw she didn't have any. But she didn't know if it was simply because he wanted to share or something much more incredible to her, that her son understood there wasn't enough for everyone. After all, if it were the latter, her son is much more than just someone with a perfect memory, something she honestly doesn't understand. Books, why books? Wouldn't you like something else, like going to the moon or being president? Why would I want to be president? Christian replied curiously. I don't know. All children want to be president. Where did you see that? In a television report. Christian looked at her with a bored expression, wondering internally what kind of channels or reports she watched. I'm not interested in being president, politicians bore me, but going to the moon sounds interesting. But it would be a waste of time, I'd only be stepping on a place full of rock and darkness, it's not something I'd like to do for the rest of my life. On the other hand, writing books is easy, I can do it from home, I don't need extensive studies, but the best thing is that it generates a lot of money. Eva did not respond, she just continued to stare at her little son's face, while little by little his face turned painful, causing Christian to panic. But if you don't like the idea, I can try something else. Christian spoke quickly, looking at his mother's face, his eyes red with sadness. It hurts so much to see that face on Mom's face. My little boy, Eva whispered sadly, setting her plate aside. She gently hugged Christian, her mind swirling with chaos and pessimism. I'm such a terrible mother. My little boy is only 9 and he's already thinking about money. It's all my fault. If only I hadn't left home. My little boy could continue his childhood. Without worries, without pain. I'm so useless. I don't know what you're thinking, Mom. But I don't like seeing you with that look, Christian whispered anxiously, looking directly into his mother's eyes. But if it really bothers you that I want to write books, I won't. Just don't be sad, okay? Eva's expression froze for a moment, her gaze settling into her son's clear, pure eyes. She easily saw the worry in them, which quickly changed her sad expression to a smiling one. What are you saying? I'm not sad, I'm just impressed that you want to write books. Oh, I understand, Christian replied, frowning at the sudden feeling of disgust that hit his stomach. But, are you sure you want to write books? Because if you're interested in something else, I'll support you in whatever else you want, Eva smiled, while playfully twirling Christian's hair. Yes, I think it would be fun to write a story. For now, maybe in the future I'll think about what to do. I still have plenty of time, Christian replied distractedly while focusing all his attention on the discomfort he feels at this moment. What the hell is this? Chapter 18, Feelings. Sigh. Then I'll be the first to read your books. I'm glad you want to do more than just read, Eva replied with a sigh, a smile forming on her face. Then she lay down on the bed and placed Christian on her stomach. Then my little boy will be the best writer in the world, so good that even Martians will come to Earth to read what you write. Those green insects will not have the opportunity to read this emperor's books. Christian exclaimed, smiling arrogantly, then lying down between his mother's breasts and whispering, but you can. I feel flattered, Eva smiled warmly, as she hugged Christian tightly between her breasts, making her eyes widen with impending breathlessness. After a minute, Christian pulled away forcefully from his mother's embrace, trying with all his might to escape the heavenly torture that was already leaving him breathless. With a sound of confusion, Eva released Christian from her embrace, causing him to quickly stand up, showing a clouded and slightly tearful expression on his face. Sniff. Christian murmured after taking a deep breath, his chest heaving furiously, doing his best to get the oxygen his cells needed. I almost died. Are you okay? Eva asked worriedly, quickly grabbing Christian's face with both hands as she looked at him in panic. I'm fine, Christian replied between breaths, giving his mother a tired but reassuring smile. Sigh. Well, Eva murmured with relief, placing a hand on her chest as she sighed, then slapped one of her breasts and spoke with a sour face, these fat bastards are causing trouble again. I can't even hug my kids properly because of these bastards. Don't do that, Christian murmured sadly, gently taking his mother's hand and pulling it away from his chest. You have to treat your body well. If you squeeze too hard, it will hurt. But these things, sigh. Eva replied bitterly, they're very annoying. I saw on TV that women were getting rid of them with surgery. Would you do that? Christian asked hesitantly, unsure if it was appropriate to bring up the subject. Looking down at her breasts, Eva grabbed the edge of her shirt collar and pulled it down slightly to examine them, then replied with a sneer, no. Even though it bothers me to have it, I would never get surgery to be more attractive. Really? Christian asked strangely. He was completely sure that his mother would have surgery the first time she had the chance. He always watched her as she looked at her breasts with annoyance, and in this world, it's as natural as having a tooth pulled. Of course I do, I despise those shitty operations, leave that to the faggots, Eva replied disdainfully, as she lay back on the bed. I'm glad, Christian smiled brightly, looking at his mother with sparkling eyes, his mind filled with endless curiosity for reasons unknown. So I still don't know my mother well enough. Besides, apparently I should never be 100% sure of anything. Why? Eva asked curiously, finding Christian's attitude quite unusual, although if she thought about it, today her son had acted like never before, something that gave her immense satisfaction. Because I really like your breasts. Really? Eva asked, her eyebrows arched, lifting her shirt again to look at her breasts doubtfully, finding nothing beautiful about them. Yes, they are beautiful, I love them. Also, my best memories are when you breastfed me. It felt so good, Christian whispered with cloudy eyes, remembering in a few seconds, years of life in which he was so small, that only with his mother's hands, he was covered in warmth, being incredibly comforted by the warmth and serenity that these memories transmitted to him. The feeling was simply indescribable, the satisfaction was so great that she wanted to shout with joy. Her euphoria was so intense that her limbs tensed as if she wanted to hit something to release some of her emotion. Oh, I remember those times, you were so small and delicate. Although you were the fastest to stop drinking my milk. Haley stayed that way until she was 3, even Alan stayed that way until he was 2, but you only lasted a year. Eva smiled nostalgically, then turned to Christian and looked at him with a smile, slowly lifting her shirt, exposing her 2 beautiful breasts without a bra. Do you want to go back to those times? Can I? Christian asked excitedly, looking at his mother with shining eyes. Why couldn't you? Eva smiled, taking Christian's head in both hands, instantly pressing him against her chest. Christian unexpectedly found himself with a nipple inside his mouth, making his mind understand for the first time what he was doing, instantly realizing that he took quite a risk by saying he loves his mother's breasts. How could he let such a stupid word slip? Although it seems the results were incredible. Nervous, Christian held with his 2 small hands the breast that was in his mouth, while Eva hugged him against her, wrapping one hand around his back and the other around his head, leaving him completely at her mercy. So, are you feeling okay? Eva asked with a playful smile, gently stroking Christian's hair, as Christian acted on instinct and began to suck on her nipple, making Eva giggle with amusement. Haha Tilda, no matter how hard you try, no more milk will come out. Now that I think about it, Mom doesn't behave like a man. Or should I say a woman of this world. Although, well, she swears quite a bit, she can't cook or sweep. But those are small things. She doesn't act distant or proud, she's not aggressive, nor did she hit me when I made a mistake. Shouldn't the father be more distant? Proud or something? Who gives you dirty looks when you make a mistake, punishes you, yells at you or something? While the mother is the one who should comfort you, take care of you, and love you. Thinking about these details for the first time, Christian seriously doubts his perspective on parents, although at this moment it's somewhat similar. My father is a bitch, while my mother is sunshine. But the roles were supposed to be reversed, my father is like my mother and my mother is like my father. Was I wrong in my other world, were mothers the bitches and fathers the good guys? Even though Christian had lived for over 20 years in his own world, his only real non-work interaction was when he talked to himself in front of a mirror. He never had best friends, girlfriends, or family, he practically grew up on the streets and alone, grateful every day for having a roof over his head. Everything he knows about life he learned from reading or hearing in movies, TV shows, or documentaries. Unfortunately, he was never interested in documentaries or family films, always preferring action or horror, which didn't help him much. His only source of understanding the meaning of the words, family, or love, came from books, where they were idealized and exaggerated to such an extent that his minimum expectations were so unrealistic they became a truly impossible fantasy. Well, he found a woman to meet the minimum requirements, but he died for her, it didn't work out that well. Who cares? Just enjoy the moment, Christian thought calmly, easily understanding that he couldn't jump to conclusions with the little or no information he had about the world, since his attention was focused on his mother's lazy but smiling gaze. Now that I think about it, I'm touching my first breast. Why don't I feel lust? A few hours ago, I almost made a mistake because I couldn't control myself when I saw Mom naked. But now I'm practically touching her and I don't feel anything. Well, I do feel something. Calm, tranquility, I feel protected. If only there were milk, thought Christian, as his eyelids slowly closed, falling asleep after a few minutes, still with Eva's nipple in his mouth, while Eva just watched television. Christian, wake up. Who is this? Let me sleep. My prince, you have to go to school. My prince, school, I graduated a long time ago. The principal called, I need to go with you to discuss the fight. What fight? I've already finished recording all my contracts, I was going to take a break, hang in there. Who the hell is talking to me? I live alone. Quote. Exclamation mark quote. With a swift movement, Christian got out of bed, cautiously looking all around him, trying to find the bastard who dared to enter his mansion. Cristiano. Eve whispered in confusion, looking with arched eyebrows, as her son raised his fists and spun around in all directions. Mom, Christian stammered, staring in astonishment at the half-naked woman beside him, instantly recalling everything that happened yesterday, causing a smile to form on his face, then climbing back onto the bed and hugging her. Good morning, Mom. Good morning, Eva smiled gently. These new ways of waking up can be quite pleasant. Although Christian always slept with her, he never hugged her, never said hello, and certainly never smiled. Not because he was angry or anything like that, Eva came to understand that her little boy simply didn't know how to communicate with people, at least that's how it was before. Now, all the reality he struggled to understand became useless, but she's more than happy with the new reality. We need to be at your school in about an hour. You need to get up quickly as the journey will take at least 40 minutes. Just 15 more minutes. Christian whispered as he approached his mother's body, comforting himself with human warmth, something he had never had the pleasure of doing. Sigh, just 10 minutes, no more. With a smile, Eva leaned back against the bed, gently gazing at the child beside her. Christian nodded lazily, adjusting himself a little to his mother's new position, lying with his head on Eva's stomach. Did you sleep well? Like never before, Christian whispered, focusing his gaze on his mother's breasts, remembering how good it felt before he fell asleep. I noticed that, Eva smiled mischievously, as she searched for her cell phone under the bed, showing after a few seconds, a picture of Christian asleep with his mother's breast in his mouth, while a small smile spread across the corner of his lips. Look, you look so cute, I'll make sure to show this to everyone. No, Christian exclaimed in a panic, quickly reaching for Eva's cell phone. Haha Tilda, Eva laughed, quickly pulling the cell phone away from Christian, finding it comical how he embarrassed himself. I can't let anyone see Mom's chest. Christian thought as a horrible feeling began to form inside him, making his expression turn pitiful. Don't be sad, it was just a joke, I'll keep it to myself, Eva whispered softly, smiling inwardly at Christian's panicked face. My son is so shy, Tilda. Don't show it to anyone. Christian whispered, frowning, finding his wonderful morning ruined by the oppressive feeling inside him. Relax, I won't let anyone see my cute Christian, Eva replied with a smile, as she reached out to squeeze Christian's cheek. Okay. Christian nodded, but even his mood was still awful, which made him turn his gaze towards Eva's chest, and without thinking twice, he moved closer to it and began to suckle, making all the previous feelings disappear, leaving only calm and warmth. What was that? It felt horrible, Christian thought in confusion, then looked up to meet the smiling Eva. But this current feeling is beautiful. It seems my prince has turned into a baby again, Eva smiled gently, as she lovingly stroked Christian's hair. In this way, 20 minutes passed quickly, until Eva realized it was too late and spoke. Well, it's been much longer than I told you, get up. Taking Christian in her arms, she pulled him away from her chest, making him reluctantly let go. I'll get your clothes. Eva smiled, leaving Christian on the edge of the bed, his feet dangling off it. Oh, the older sister has arrived. Christian smiled gently, appreciating for the first time in a long time the woman who slept in the bed next to him. Yes, she arrived just as you fell asleep, Eva replied with a frown, glancing sideways at the empty bed. Christian's father didn't arrive yesterday, which caused Alan and Haley to sleep in their older sister's bed, as they are afraid to sleep alone. Come and get dressed quickly, we're late. Chapter 19, Harassment. Before we go in, do you have anything else you want to tell me? Eva asked seriously, as she stood in front of the principal's office. Did I already tell you that I love you? I replied nervously, doing my best not to take my eyes off Mom. I don't know why I feel so nervous, I know I didn't do anything wrong. Well, maybe I went too far beating them until they bled, but those bastards deserved it. Why the hell do I feel so nervous? My hands are sweaty, my heart is pounding, I even feel like I lack the strength to move towards the bedroom door. It wasn't my fault. That lousy teacher doesn't know how to control children. Yes, you told me. Eva smiled, opening the office door, turned to Christian and took his hand. Let's go in. When I entered the office, the first thing I saw was 4 adults with the 3 dogs among them. It gave me immense satisfaction to see my artwork on the face of the pig named Jack, who at that moment was looking at me fearfully, while clinging to his mother's leg. The boy's face was quite swollen, his lips, cheeks, eyes, literally everything about him was swollen, while the purple color was visible all over. The other 2 were relatively better, only one had bruises on one side of his face, but the fear in their eyes when they saw me was no less than Jake's. Yes, you told me. Eva smiled, opening the office door, turned to Christian and took his hand. Let's go in. Good morning, Mrs. Gray, please have a seat. Upon hearing the voice, I turned to look at the director, who was standing there shaking my mother's hand. The woman was between 40 and 50 years old, with hair that was a mix of white and black due to her age. She wore glasses and was somewhat overweight, but that's normal considering that almost everyone gains weight more easily at that age. Good morning, Principal Smith. Eva smiled as she sat down, took me in her arms, and sat me on her lap. Then she turned her gaze to the parents. Good morning. The moment he saw the children, his eyes widened slightly, instantly creating a frown on his face. He then lowered his gaze and looked at Christian with some anger, but without saying a word, he turned to the principal and waited silently, ignoring the furious looks of the parents beside him. Well, now that we're all here we can start talking, said Mrs. Smith, as she took some papers from her side and placed them in the middle, looking up again. The principal pointed to the parents who were still standing to one side. Mrs. Gray, those next to you are the parents of Jake, Noah, and Brad. And as you may already know, Mrs. Eva is Christian's mother, the director said to the parents. I assume you all know why you're here today, but I'd like the children to explain everything to me so I can have a broader understanding of the issue. With all due respect, sir, what do you expect? Just look at my son's face, the woman behind Jack asked, glaring angrily at my mother. Your son almost killed my son. Don't you know how to raise your children? Is that what you teach at home? Excuse me, Eva exclaimed in disbelief, then her expression turned furious. It was your son who was always picking on mine. Besides, who the hell do you think you are to tell me how to raise my children? Ladies, the principal exclaimed angrily, causing the 2 mothers to fall silent, but neither of them took their eyes off each other. We are in the presence of children, show respect. Mrs. Smith, she was angry about how Jack was left. A man behind Noah spoke, while looking sadly at the boy beside him, who was accompanied by who appeared to be his mother. We've known each other for a long time, our children have been friends for years, but we've never been through a situation like this before. Just look at the three children, just looking at their faces breaks my heart. I understand your situation, Mrs. and Mr. Brown, but as headmistress, I can't draw conclusions just by looking at you, the headmistress replied, turning her gaze back to the pig. Now, let's start with you, Jack. Can you tell me what happened yesterday? Yes, the purple-haired boy nodded nervously, tears welling in his eyes. I was reading a magazine with my friends, but Christian came and hit me really hard sniff. MN. This shit in my stomach again. Did the rice make me sick? That is. Yes sniffs. Noah and Brad, anything to add? Mrs. Smith asked, turning her gaze to the other two children, instantly receiving a negative response from them. Well, is that all with them? Christian, could you tell me what happened yesterday? When my name was called, all eyes turned to me, even my mother stopped looking at the other woman and looked at me with a frown, making my nervousness rise to another level. Calm down. Being nervous does me no good. That's not all, Principal. I exclaimed nervously, a frown appearing on my face, as my mind constantly worked to get me out of this bad situation. Give me a second. Christian, it's not your fault, you have nothing to be nervous about. Inhale. Asterisk sniff. Exhale. Asterisk foo. Well, he speaks after a few seconds, this time looking seriously at Mrs. Smith. Principal Smith, I understand that every student in this school has a behavior record, is that correct? Yes, everyone has one. Why do you ask? The principal replied, reaching for other papers in the corner of her desk. Could you read mine, please? I suppose so, but I'll summarize it since these files are very long. The director nodded, while searching through the papers, pulling out my record after a few seconds. Christian Gray, 8 years old. You've been at this school since the beginning of your studies, impeccable behavior, according to the teachers you're somewhat absent-minded but you always contribute when asked. Your grades are among the highest in the school. You don't have many friends at school, but you've never had any problems with anyone. The headmistress explained slowly, raising her eyebrows as she read the file, then looked at me. That's the general summary. Now, will you tell us what happened yesterday? Yes, let me explain everything from the beginning. I nodded quickly. Mrs. Smith, as the file says, I'm not very sociable. It's not that I have few friends, I simply don't have any. I always mind my own business, I don't bother anyone, I don't talk to anyone. A small prick, what does that have to do with the fact that you hit my son? Interrupted the same woman who fought with Mom, making my mother quickly turn to face her. What the hell did you say to my son, you whore? Mom yelled, her face red with fury, quickly pushing me down to the ground, while she stood up and walked over to the woman. Bitch, you wanna fight? The woman responded hostilely, as she aggressively approached my mother. You and how many others? My mother yelled angrily, instantly pushing her back, making her fall to the ground, while she looked at my mother in disbelief. Weren't you going to fight? Fight your piece of shit. Shit. Mom is amazing. The woman remained on the floor, staring in shock at my mother, who looked at her with disdain. Burst. Girlfriends. The principal exclaimed angrily, slamming her fist on her desk. Can you two behave like adults and stop fighting? Tisk you're saved, for now, you useless bitch, Eve said irritably, looking into the woman's eyes, then turned around and sat back down, quickly placing Christian on her lap, while the woman squeezed her hands tightly. Mrs. Miller and Mrs. Gray, if you ever engage in this type of behavior again, I will be forced to call the police. The principal said angrily, then turned to Christian and smiled kindly. You may continue. Well, like I said before, I never bothered anyone, much less hit anyone. I spoke again, looking seriously at Mrs. Smith. But honestly, I couldn't take it anymore. Those three kids kept bothering me. As you know, they're 3 years older than me. We don't have classes together or anything, but they always come to my classes to bother me, even during free time they don't leave me alone. Is that true? The principal asked, looking at the children. No. Jack shouted nervously, pointing at me with his trembling finger. He's lying. Mrs. Smith, I think it's wrong that you have to question our children. It's obvious that the boy named Christian hit our children and now he's trying to make something up to defend himself, the last woman replied, apparently Brad's mother, and then turned to my mother and spoke seriously. I would like to warn you that my sister is a lawyer, and if the principal doesn't give your son an appropriate punishment, we will take legal action against him for bullying. I sincerely regret that you have to go through this difficult time, but you should have raised your son better. What did you say? My mother responded furiously, preparing to stand up aggressively. Wait, Mom, I exclaimed quickly, grabbing Mom's shoulders and forcing her to sit back down, as she looked at me confused. You don't have to waste your time with these people, let me finish speaking. As I got off my mom's lap, I stood in front of the principal's desk and looked at her seriously.
Principal, they've been bullying me for a year now. They hid my things, hit me, scribbled on my notebooks, put pins in my seat, even threatened me with scissors, saying they'd cut my hair for being weird. Clenching my fists tightly as I recalled the amount of crap I had to put up with, I turned my head to show the principal the bruise on my face. Yesterday I went to the bathroom. Classes were already over, but somehow they found me, came into the bathroom, and started bullying me. Jack, Noah, and Brad started pushing me all over the place until someone finally caught me and I ended up hitting my head on the toilet, knocking me unconscious for a while. The last thing I remember is their laughter as they came out of the bathroom. Is all that true? The principal asked me, frowning. You need to know that lying won't do you any good. Are you really going to believe all her lies? The woman asked, frowning, but the director ignored her and continued looking at me. That's right, principal. I spoke to my homeroom teacher about this a while ago. He said he would talk to them, but instead of solving the problem, he made it worse, as their bullying became more frequent. If you don't believe me, you can call him, or even my classmates, they always saw everything, I explained calmly. Yesterday, I did hit them, but not because I'm aggressive. I realized that talking isn't the answer, I had to defend myself. I tried everything. I asked them to leave me alone, I spoke to an adult, I tried to avoid them, but they're so stupid they couldn't find anything more fun than bothering me. That's why I decided to take the smartest course of action, to defend myself. If what Christian says is true, let me say this is a serious case, the principal replied, looking seriously at the parents behind me, then approaching the microphone next to her and saying, Professor Mason, please come to my office. Director, I understand there are cameras in the hallways. You could look at yesterday's recording and see for yourself how they followed me to the bathroom. You could also see my condition when I came out of it. You're not missing anything, are you? The principal smiled slightly as she stood up and headed for the door. I'm going to get the recordings, I'll be back in a few minutes. I don't think I need to remind you that I'll call the police if you fight again. Chapter 20, The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Once the principal left, I turned to the woman who threatened my mother. Ma'am, I want you to know that if your children don't receive the appropriate punishment, we will initiate legal action. You need to know that our country shows no mercy to children who commit these acts. Considering how serious this case is, it would be a miracle if you didn't send them to juvenile detention for their threats against me. I could even appeal it as attempted murder if we consider that they threatened me with scissors. I sincerely regret that you have to go through this, but you should have raised your son better. Having finished speaking, I didn't bother looking at the woman again and returned to my mother's lap, who was looking at me with a proud smile. Ha 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 Tilda, my little prince is amazing. Eva laughed heartily, then hugged me a little tighter, while softly whispering, but next time you have to tell me these things first. Don't you have to put up with anyone bothering or mistreating you? I nodded, sinking down a little more, to rest between Mom's breasts. How dare you lie to me? But just as I began to relax while I waited, a scream sounded behind us, making Mom and me turn around. Mom. Don't give me excuses, you useless girl, exclaimed the same woman Mom had pushed earlier. Just wait until we get home. Damn it, I break my back at that shitty job and your useless father can't raise you properly. That stupid bitch. So that's where that kid's stupidity came from. Sigh. Why the hell do they have kids? Well, most likely the child is an accident that even after being born, was not wanted. Sniff Mom. Jack sobbed pitifully, as he tugged at the hem of the woman's polo shirt. Don't cry. Slap. A sharp slap landed on Jack's face, causing everyone in the office to stare in disbelief, as my mother slowly lowered me to the floor. Emma, calm down, Noah's father shouted, running towards Jack, then pushing Emma back and grabbing Jack in his hands. What do you think you're doing? Back off, bitch, the woman named Emma shouted furiously, pushing Noah's father hard. Who the hell do you think you're pushing, my man? Noah's mother, who had been completely silent until now, screamed, aggressively pushing Emma. Damn, that was intense. I was watching the whole thing with a mixture of amusement and pity. Knowing the shit Jack has to go through at home, I can understand his shitty attitude a little, but that doesn't mean I like it. If he dares to bother me again, I'd hit him, but out of pity. Bitch. Emma screamed with extreme fury, hitting Noah's mother hard, making her fall to the ground, while blood gushed from her nose. Oh. That must have hurt. Do you think you're so brave that you're a piece of shit? That voice. Mother. Turning my head quickly, I see my mother approaching Emma, while slowly rolling up her work shirt sleeves. Do you have a problem? Emma responded aggressively, approaching my mother in a hostile manner. I can't stand your damn voice anymore. Finishing speaking, Mom quickly slapped Emma across the face, causing her to recoil for a moment as blood began to drip from her lips. Bitch. With a scream, Emma throws a punch at Mom, making my heart stop for a moment. Even your blows are useless. Eva whispered lazily, easily dodging Emma's blow, then grabbing her arm and pulling it, while lifting her leg and punching the woman in the stomach. You hit your son, you might even hit your man, all to hide your cowardice, you useless bitch, Eva said calmly, looking disdainfully at Emma, who was breathing heavily beside her. Mom punched her in the stomach, instantly knocking the wind out of her. That shit must hurt. Shit. Mom is amazing. Grasping Emma's hair tightly, Mom lifted her head, their eyes meeting. Didn't you say you wanted to fight? Didn't you like telling me I'm a bad mother? What happened now? Did the mouse get your tongue? Bitch. Emma yelled angrily, throwing a punch at Mom. Without letting go of the woman's hair, Mom tilted her head slightly, easily dodging the woman's fist, then placed her leg behind Emma and with her other hand pushed her to the ground, making her fall with a thud. Ah! Emma spat out a little saliva, while looking fearfully at the woman crouching beside her. If you dare insult me again, my son, I will kill you, Eva whispered in the woman's ear, her cold eyes darting towards Emma. Understood. Shit. Mom is. Good. Wait. How did I hear that? Slap. Can you hear me? Mom shouts again, pulling me out of my thoughts, instantly noticing a red mark on Emma's face. Yeah. Slap. I didn't hear you. Yeah. Slap. I don't speak stuttering language. Yes, I understood everything. Emma shouted, her eyes red, as she put her hands to her face because of the intense burning sensation that assailed her. Well, I like talking to intelligent people. With a few final pats on the woman's face, Eva got up and straightened her clothes. Fuck. As I watched the woman straightening her clothes, my heart pounded violently. Mother. It's hot. As if she noticed my gaze, Mom turned towards me, her serious expression freezing as her eyes opened. This, Eva replied nervously, glancing at the woman on the floor, then at her hands, and then back at me again, but this time her gaze was serious. This is what you should never do. Everyone in the room looked at my mother, as her face became increasingly uncomfortable, causing her to turn her gaze back at them. What the hell are you looking at? Upon hearing her scream, everyone turned to look, while Eva froze again, slowly turning her gaze back to me. This. Turning her nervous gaze toward the other parents, Eva turned to me seriously, you shouldn't do this either. Mommy. Jack exclaimed sadly, causing everyone to look away from him. Jack rushed to Emma, touching her bleeding face with concern. Are you okay, Mommy? Take your hands off me. Emma shouted angrily, quickly slapping Jack's hands away, as she slowly sat down on the floor, touching her face in obvious pain, but not daring to look at Eve, who was now staring at her with dead eyes. Frowning, I look with annoyance at the woman on the floor. How could a mother be so stupid? Mommy asterisk sniff. Jack sobbed, gently grasping the hem of the woman's clothing, who didn't even give her son a second glance. Now I feel bad for hitting him. Tisk. With a click of annoyance, I approach the woman, quickly reach her side, bring my face close to hers and look into her eyes. Woman, I don't know what you've been through in your life to be so violent, but that child you hit a few seconds ago cares deeply for you. I'm serious, then I turn my gaze back to Jack. That child is your son, flesh of your flesh and blood of your blood. Don't you know how awful it feels to be mistreated by a family member? Because I can tell you. It sucks, the most horrible thing a child can feel. It feels even more awful when the aggression comes from someone like their mother, who's supposed to be their pillar, the person who loves and cares for them the most. Honestly, I don't know how he still cares for you, because if I were him, I wouldn't even feel sorry for you. You should consider that, because at this rate, when you're a wrinkled old woman, you won't have anyone left with you. It must be awful to die alone. He might not even attend your funeral. What a shame. Shaking my head in disappointment, I turn to Jack, not bothering to say another word to the woman staring at me in astonishment. I approach the crying boy, take his face in my hands, and look deeply into his eyes. I hate you, but I understand. It's not your fault you're an idiot, it's that shitty mother of yours, fault. Honestly, I don't know what to say to you, since I understand that your intelligence is still non-existent compared to mine, but remember my words, they'll serve you well in the future. You're not worthless, you're not trash, you don't have to hit others just because your mother does. Your mother is trash, your mother is worthless, no. She's worse than trash, a person who takes out their frustrations on their family doesn't even deserve a nickname. You have to be better than her, better than that trash, prove it to yourself, because others don't matter. If that bitch ever tries to hit you, punch her in the back. It might be scary at first, but you're a man and you have to deal with it. Because if you don't put an end to this situation, you'll live miserably for the rest of your life. Anything works, a broom, a stick, a chair, whatever you have at hand will work to defend yourself. I recommend you don't think too much about the police option, since I honestly don't think it will do much good. Sure, they could take her to jail, but sooner or later she'll get out and she'll be much more aggressive. You know what? Only call them if you really need help. Even running out of the house and screaming for help will help, the neighbors will hear you. Shit, I'm rambling a lot. Just remember my words, because they'll help you a lot with that shitty mother, but if none of the options I gave you work, let me know and I'll make sure that bitch stays in jail for life. Got it? Sniff. Jack didn't answer me, he just stared at my face with tears in his eyes while his snot dripped wildly. I'm asking you, do you understand what I told you? Sniff. Slap. You understand? Yes. Jack nodded quickly, as he swiftly brought his hand to his face, looking at me with anguish. I understand. Well, I like talking to intelligent people. Nodding to myself, I gently punch him a couple of times in the face and turn away proudly, feeling like I've just done a very good deed, but when I turn around I encounter something that freezes me. Everyone stared at me with impressed faces, even the teacher and the principal who had arrived at some point during my speech looked on in amazement. Oh. I've already messed up. When I look back at my mother, I notice that she has an expressionless face, while her lips open and close, like a fish out of water, which makes my nervousness rise to another level. I glance back at Jack's cheek, then turn to my mother, my face serious. Was that what I wasn't supposed to do? I just didn't understand, so I wanted to show you, so you could tell me if I could or not. And what I said was just a joke. Ha, ha, ha. Smiling nervously, I cautiously walk over to my mother, taking advantage of the fact that she was still frozen in place, and gently hug her leg, rubbing my cheek with a small smile. Did I tell you today that I love you very much? Cough. Can I ask what happened here? The principal asked, frowning and looking sternly at the woman on the floor. Jack can explain. I responded quickly, granting the child the decision that could change his life. Now the question is, what changes will his life undergo? Honestly, I only see bad paths. Stupid mother, apparently the father is a docile bitch, personality problems, lack of self-esteem, etc. Tisk. Given the changes in the world, it's likely that Jack will become a real bitch in the future. At least most of her paths lead there, there's always the possibility that she'll think differently and try to change. Although my thoughts were created based on my reality, poverty. Because in this school we're in, almost all the students are close to poverty. Honestly, the school system in the United States is kind of strange. Poor people study with other poor people. Sure, there are times when two different neighborhoods come together at the same school, but it happens so rarely that it's insignificant. Reversal, Novel R18.